This is Screen Junkies Movie Fights, brought to you by NatureBox. Now your host, Andy Signore.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to an epic episode. I know I say it a lot, but this one truly is. We've been working on this one for a while, and I'm so proud to bring it to you. A while back, we did a show called Fan Fights, where we brought in 3 Screen Junkies fans to fight live here with coaches. Ever since then, we've had so many people wanting to come and get their shot in the ring here, and we wanted to bring it back, but we wanted to bring it back right. So we are back with our Fan Fight Champion 2017, but this year, we wanted to make sure we did it bigger and better. And so if you haven't been watching on Plus, which I know some of you here on YouTube don't, we wanted to give you a little backstory on how the road to the championships became, how it happened. So let's see a quick little video to set up the tone here of what we're about to see, a little journey to championship today. You're in!
Yes! Oh my god, I'm so happy. So happy, guys. Oh my.
You're coming out to LA.
Yes! You're kidding me. My heart just stopped.
You're in. You're gonna come out to LA and fight in the fan fights.
Yeah, man, come on with a trick question. And I'm at work again, and the people outside are gonna think I'm a crazy person.
Congrats, you're in. Start prepping. You'll have some time, and we're excited to have you. That gives Jonathan the point, and I believe the win. Yes. Jonathan Youngblood, you move on to our fan fights. You move on to our fan fights final.
Heavy pressure cooker, as it should. The final question. Winner takes the game and moves to the finals. I think I'm gonna have to go with. I'm gonna disappoint somebody. That's what makes it so hard.
Just do it.
Just
it's like a Band-Aid. Just rip it off.
I think I'm gonna have to go with Adry and say that Wolf of Wall Street. I think that argument swayed me, so Adry gets the point and Adry gets the win. Congratulations, Adry. Adry, you will be moving on to the fan final versus Jonathan Youngblood and a mystery third competitor.
What if I told you you had a second chance?
I would freak out and then figure out how to tell my wife that I have to go back to California. And then she would murder me, and then my corpse would make the flight, and you guys would just have to Weekend at Bernie's me to make it happen.
Sounds hilarious.
Well, Jack, saying there might be a second chance.
Don't play with my emotions.
Well, guess what? You have a second chance to maybe get the third spot.
Come on, man. Holy crap.
Third spot.
All right, guys, welcome to the second chance fight. We are here with one seat available, and one of you can earn a spot in that final. Are you both prepared for this? I gotta give it to Dan. That means, Dan, you're coming out to fan fights. Dan, round of applause.
A well-fought battle.
Bravo. Woo, that was exciting! Man, I'm so glad we could show that. Let's go cut to the wide because these fighters have earned their spots today. They didn't just get to submit in a video and we said, your video's fun, come in here. No, this was a very, very arduous task. We, thanks to Lon, Max, everybody, Billy, everybody who sort of helped us watch the videos, Warren, everybody. We had so many submissions for this episode. It was very taxing for us because we knew we were going to, disappoint a lot of people to do this wrong. But man, you guys did not disappoint. You guys, we did 2 semifinal rounds on Plus exclusively the past few weeks, and 2 of those winners are here today. First up, he's out for blood. It's Jonathan Youngblood.
I promise that I will try to keep it a little more toned down than last time, but this is going to be so much fun. I'm so excited.
Bring it like you did. Jonathan won the first semifinals, and you made it through, and now you're back in LA for your second trip. Congratulations, you're here. She won the second seat, and she's trying to stay undefeated. Adry Sotolonogo, welcome back, Adry.
I'm super excited to be here. It's been a great time in LA, and I can't wait to do this again.
You are back, and I didn't get to fight your fight, or judge your fight. Dan was judging your fight, but I will back up Dan Merle's. All of his judgings were spot on. I agree with the ruling. Well earned. Very strong fight, though. You fought against the man to your left there, and Dan, you were it's Dan Hernandez. Welcome, Dan.
Thanks for having me.
You came back on the seat of your pants against fan favorite Jack Shipley, you two were the second place finalists. We put you head to head in a special surprise SJU episode. You got to beat it out of him in a final blind fight. You managed to eke out that victory, and now you are here in the second chance chair. How does it feel to be back?
Back from the dead. It feels great. Jack, I love you, buddy, but it feels good to be here. I am stoked, and I got some great competitors next to me, so let's do it.
Fantastic. Well, I'm so excited, and I can assure you, I don't want to overhype it because I don't know. You guys might screw up, but I don't think you will because I saw you all fight. I know how passionate. I know this means something to you guys. So it's very tough on me because I don't want to break anybody's heart here. Let's just establish now, you all won. Congratulations. I'm so proud of you. I'm so glad that you're fans of ours, and we are now fans of you guys. You brought the heat. You brought the passion. Let's continue it today. Have a good, fair fight. Don't get nervous. There's not a ton of people watching today.
Not today yet.
Help me today, as always, to help do this because this one's gonna be tough. I'm gonna say it early. Over on the fact checking today, as always, Mr. Dan Merle. Dan, hello. You got to be part of this firsthand. Tell me what your feelings are.
I did. I judged the second semifinal round. Adry won. Put Dan through to the wild card. Dan Hernandez. Yes, this is the best of the best. We wanted to make sure out to the YouTube crowd, for everyone's sake, that we got our best fans forward. I think that everyone has their own unique style. Everyone has their own unique perspective on things. This is going to be a very interesting fight to see who wins out today.
Agreed. Next to you, I'm so happy to have, it's so nice online. We're big fans of you too, Randall. Randall Sands on the fan cam. Oh, one of my favorite people on Twitter because you're so delightful to all of us. Thank you. You're in from, where are you in from again?
Raleigh, North Carolina.
Raleigh, North Carolina. I'm glad you're out in LA. I'm glad we could get you a seat here. You might be helping a real fan randomly who's here at the time, might help decide which fan wins here. Do you have a favorite?
No, actually, I don't have a favorite.
Good.
In the fight.
Good. There you go. He's fair. I like that. He's not a young blood. We've got a lot of young bloods here because he knows a lot of people in LA. Well, fantastic. Thank you for coming, Randall. Dan, I know you're going to be fact-checking, but make sure you're listening to the arguments this time.
Because I want to make sure we tune out, if I'm being honest. I usually tune out and just stop listening, but I will be
I'm activating you this show because you've been involved. This is important for everyone. I want to make sure we really deem this one right. So this is going to be fun. You guys ready to do this?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Before we begin, today's episode is brought to you by one of my favorite sponsors. It's Nature Box. Guys, Nature and Dan and Randall, I think you have some Nature Box samples over there. For those that don't know, Nature Box is snacks that actually taste great and are better for you. Created with high-quality ingredients that are free from artificial colors, flavors, and sweeteners that you can feel great about snacking. There are over 100 snacks to choose from. They are delivered right to your door, and you can order as much as you want, as often as you want, with no minimum purchase required, and you can cancel anytime. So after the show, go to naturebox.com/screenjunkies. It's on your screen right there to save 50% off your first order, exclusive to Screen Junkies fans. Again, that's naturebox.com/screenjunkies for 50% of your first order. Now, I read a lot of that script. Dude, Nature Box is good. It's like a really nice, healthy options because I don't like health food. I gotta be honest, but they give you the portions. They give you good stuff that tastes good. Nature Box is legit. Go check out some fun. What are you trying there? What's good?
Greek yogurt pretzels, which you can't beat yogurt pretzels.
Dude, share some over here, man.
Randall, have some of these.
Winner will get some of our Nature Box. Yes.
That's the incentive right there.
But again, please, thanks to naturebox.com. Check them out /ScreenJunkies for 50% off your first order. Thank you so much. All right, guys, it's time. Let's do this.
Come on. Let's get nuts. I want to fight you.
You want to fight? Let him fight.
You start this fight, I'll kill you.
I could do this all day.
Now, guys, it wouldn't be a Fan Fights Championship without a belt on the line.
What?
Guys, I'm happy to debut the Fan Fights belt. Yeah! This is what you want to covet. This is what you will win today if you are so fortunate. Look at that, Dan.
Mini Oscars.
Are you jealous? It's a belt you can't have.
It's metal.
It's heavy.
I might have to quit and come back and just seriously and fight for that belt.
This is the one belt that Dan Merle cannot earn.
Never.
You guys can have it. It's up for grabs. Everyone excited? Is this up the stakes a lot?
Yeah.
Yes. and it just got hot glued. We'll fix that for you. There you go. That's good. But here we go. Fan Fights belt is up for grabs. May the best fighter win. Let's do this. Round 1. I got to be honest. There are some great fights today. These are some good topics.
Oh yeah.
This one first up. I didn't hype them, but you should see in the description. But these aren't your typical comic book fare that everyone accuses us we always do. We wanted the best for you guys because we know you're going to bring it, and this first one was no exception. In fact, this was brought to us on Twitter by somebody who I want to credit because it was a good fight. So I'm taking a second because we didn't put it in here, but it was suggested from. Sorry, it's coming. Hey Dan, how's it going?
I'm great.
Down on pretzels.
You're not used. You don't usually throw it to me while you're looking for that. Yeah, a lot of people online super excited. A lot of fans that tweet with us every week. Excited to see Randall here on the couch, here on the show.
Yes.
Jack Shipley says he wants that belt.
Sorry,
I don't know what to tell you, Jack.
Next year. Well, I found
year.
who the tweet. This came actually from a bunch, but the first person who submitted it, and even Lon and I were like, how did this question never get asked? Daniel, DN Alien Prime. Thank you, Daniel. Very good fight. This came in late. What, in honor of our newbies here, what is the best feature film debut role by any actor? That's a really good question. There's a lot of roles you guys could pick, and I know what you guys picked. You picked 3 good ones. Let's get to it. Dan, we're going to you first.
Sure.
Screwing it up things. Dan, what's your choice?
So my choice is Julie Andrews in the amazing role of Mary Poppins. I think that it was a great debut role. I think she did a great job in it. I'm looking forward to fighting about it. There she is.
All right, Julie Andrews. Well, we can hear all your options, and we'll come back around. Audrey, what are you picking?
So I'm picking the late Alan Rickman as Hans Gruber in Die Hard.
Hans.
Bubby.
Jonathan?
I am picking Natalie Portman in Leon the Professional.
All right, 3 strong roles. I'll admit it out the gate. You don't need to sell me that these are great roles. I mean, you're gonna a little bit, but let's hear why yours is better. Back to you, Dan. Julie Andrews over Hans and Natalie Portman in The Professional.
So with Julie Andrews and Mary Poppins, she did a lot of things in that one movie. She showed us that she could sing, she showed us that she could dance, and she showed us that she could act. That's something that I think is crucial when you're talking about the first role. You want to let the world know what it is that you're capable of, and I think with that movie, she did a fabulous job in doing so. In addition, we're talking about one of the most iconic characters in the world. I think everybody knows who Mary Poppins is, and if you ask everybody, hey, what's one of most Julie Andrews, one of her most popular roles, they're going to say Mary Poppins. It's going to be one of the first things that comes out, with Natalie Portman and with Alan Rickman. It may come out that they say Leon the Professional. It may come out that they say Die Hard. But at the end of the day, they're always going to say Mary Poppins first and foremost with Julie Andrews. And I think that's why it's one of the best feature film debuts for any actor.
Audrey?
I think I picked Alan Rickman because I think not only did he do an amazing performance as Hans Gruber, I think he redefined what is the modern movie villain. And to be able to do that in your first movie role is so bold. And he made it, I mean, prior to the 90s, all we had was like these big, bulky, probably Russian, given the time era, villains. And he made it a thinking villain. He was conniving. He had that presence and that delivery that just made it so much more commanding. And every villain after that was basically trying to imitate. You can think of like Executive Decision, Air Force One, even in Face Off a little bit. They're all trying to be that guy. And it's all that thanks to the presence and the way that Alan Rickman was able to carry that character. Compared to the other two, I just think his has a bigger influence down the line, especially in comparison to something like Natalie Portman's in Leon the Professional, which I think in the greater scheme of her career is almost forgettable. And Julie Andrews, I think you need to take your nostalgia goggles off a little bit and look at that movie again. I know this is a very dear film for a lot of people, so I hesitate to say that, but it's an acting performance that required very limited range. She was just like a happy-go-lucky nanny, and that's it. We get no backstory. We don't know what her motivations are. It's a very well done flat performance because it's a flat character. So it's hard to say that that's like the best performance when that's what she had to work with.
Jonathan, let's get you in before he replies because I see he's chomping at the bit.
Oh yeah, this is gonna be fun. So like you said, these are all very good performances. I'm not gonna debate any of that. But we have picked very good choices. But I will say, something that goes above and beyond just being a good performance is giving a nuanced performance, giving an impressive performance for who you are. Natalie Portman, she was cast for this movie because the director found her in a pizza parlor when she was 11 years old. She came in as an 11 or 12-year-old girl. The movie came out when she was 13 and gave one of the most amazing performances, especially for someone of her age, where she is able to portray a character, a 12-year-old who's been through an abusive family situation, has watched her family be slaughtered in front of her, and progress and transform and change throughout the movie. She changes throughout the movie in such a way that sticks with you after you see the movie. You're thinking about what she's going to do after the ending. I mean, I don't want to... is this another Saving Private Ryan situation? Can I spoil?
Yes,
it's
been out for quite some time.
Okay,
Yeah, you're
okay.
right.
At the end, when she walks away from the situation after Leon sacrifices himself for her, and when you sit there thinking, what does she do next? You feel for her because of how amazing of a performance that a 12-year-old girl gave in her film debut.
It was, I think it was an above-average child star performance. I mean, it was her first performance. But I mean, there's, to say that it was the best first performance is a different story. I mean, like Adry had mentioned, it's not rememberable. I mean, if you ask somebody, hey, Natalie Portman, are they gonna say Leon the Professional? No, most people didn't even see Leon the Professional. And in terms of Mary Poppins, I mean, talking about performance, to take a character like Mr. Banks, who is cold, who is unfeeling, who is kind of shut off to the world and his children especially, and through her lessons and through her involvement, turn that character around. That's not one note. That's not, just a flat performance. There's nuance there. There's so much emotion behind everything she does with the children, especially, but also in the interactions with Mr. Banks.
Well, you're saying that Mary Poppins' character changes because she changes other people. That's not her performance. That's the performances of the supporting cast in Mary Poppins doing an amazing job. It has nothing to do with her by herself.
No, but it sells. If she doesn't do a good enough job, you don't buy what the other actors are doing on screen. That's the reality of it.
I don't buy her sometimes. I mean, there's something really creepy about her. Like, she portrays it so sweet, and then when you see what she's actually saying, things like, kids who don't go to sleep on time should go to jail, you're like, there's something weird about the way that she chose to interpret this character. She picked a very sweet flat when there's something in the way it's written that isn't like that. There's a little bit of a dark there that she chose not to highlight.
But it's hinted on, and that's the thing. That's the whole concept.
But not by her performance. No. And with regard to Natalie Portman, it was almost like a hello and goodbye for her for a while there. Like, I thought we were like, it was gonna be like, she
was in Heat the next year. She was in Mars Attacks a couple years later.
But neither one of those performances was hardly as big. And then you went in, when she finally stopped being a child actress, we got Star Wars,
which was one of the biggest franchises of all time. She because of the strength of her performance in Leon the Professional, she was given the chance to act in one of the biggest franchises of all time.
I don't think that's the case. I don't think that's the case at all.
Let's stay focused on the film at hand.
Fair. Yeah.
Sure. So, well, and again, I mean, because we haven't talked too much about Alan Rickman, and it breaks my heart to do so, but Hans is not, I mean, there are some things that Hans was, but in terms of a complex villain, at the end of the day, he was a bank robber.
Yeah.
That's what Hans was. I mean, and you compared him to something like, for example, Gary Oldman in Air Force One, and that's a totally different performance. You're talking about somebody who's trying to liberate his leader and oppression and things like that, versus somebody who's, at the end of the day, is a very classy bank robber. And did he do a good job of it? Yeah, he did okay. I mean, it was entertaining, but at the same time, it wasn't this groundbreaking performance that kind of... It's just not the same thing. It's not as...
He is a great villain, but all he is a great villain. He starts out off as a crazy villain, and he ends as a dead villain. That is not a character arc. That is maybe an impressive performance as a villain, but that's all it is.
Being a villain is one of the most hardest jobs, though. It's so easy to forget about villains, and it's so easy to, just play it like a campy performance or this, very, stereotype performance. What he did was transform what we think of when we think of villains. He was almost seductive with his presence, with his voice. The way, for a while, we almost wanted to cheer for him at times because he's just that good. Even the smallest tricks, like when all of a sudden he tricks Bruce Willis into thinking he's actually one of the hostages. The fact that he always feels like he's one step ahead.
But that was some of the worst acting that he did, though.
It was amazing.
Oh, God, no. Oh, you're one of them, aren't you? That was horrible.
But it was unexpected because all of a sudden you have a villain who's
His
thinking
badness
ahead.
was unexpected?
No, the plot turn was unexpected, and I don't think it was bad. I think he did a really convincing American accent, which very few actors can do.
Even Bruce Willis didn't fall for it in the movie.
And you bring
up actually.
You bring up an interesting thing when you bring up expectation, because prior to them going into these films, Alan Rickman was a Tony Award-nominated actor. He was already known for being a big stage performer. Julie Andrews had already been in one of the highest-viewed TV movies of all time, when Cinderella, which was seen by 107 million people at the time. These were established performers that people knew what they were getting from. Natalie Portman came onto the scene, and she had done literally nothing except for a student film that was never actually released on video or even into theaters. She was nothing. And she came in and she blew everyone out of the water with a true debut that no one had ever seen before.
I think you're totally overestimating how much people know who was playing what in the theater.
If you ask anyone on the side of the street, I guarantee you, it's not gonna come up the same way. It's just not. I mean,
we're asking this in 2016. I'm saying in 1935, Julie Andrews was a household name. She was the youngest solo performer seen in the Royal Variety performance for the King and Queen of England at the age of 13. She was an established performer. Alan Rickman had just been in a Tony Award-nominated role with Les Liaisons Dangereuses.
But the question was a feature film. In English. The question was feature film debut, and that's the thing.
I'm not debating that they're ineligible. I'm saying that I'm saying that in terms of as a debut, in terms of being impressive as a debut, Natalie Portman had 10 billion times more to prove, and she excelled every expectation. The expectations for Alan Rickman, sure, he was a serviceable villain. He did a good job, but people already knew that he was capable of doing good stuff, and almost he took a step back to become a villain from what he was already doing on stage.
I think it's more than serviceable. A guy who's been consistently ranked as one of the best villains of all time, number 17 in AFI, and the greatest character as far as Empire was concerned. More importantly, number 46. More importantly, with Natalie Portman's Leon the Professional, I have to say, I don't think it's fair to say that it was that revolutionary what she did. Because the movie itself, compared to these two, was not as critically acclaimed. It has worse ratings with the critics. And two, while her performance was very strong, at times I forgot she was 12 because she couldn't act 12. And part of the nuance of that... No, give me a second. Part of the nuance of that character is her having to grow up fast because of their circumstances, but there should have been some of that vulnerability because she is 12. And at times I'm like, did they cast a 15-year-old? Did they cast a 16-year-old? Because she sort of forgot about that side of the character.
Well, an argument could be made that it was done even better from look at Kick-Ass and Hit Girl. I mean, that was infinitely better because you felt the age of the character while at the same time you're seeing the effects of her upbringing and things like that. But at the end of the day, she still was a little kid. I mean, that's what made it so interesting and compelling. And just looking back at every one of these performers and their debuts, the one thing that Julie Andrews has among everything else besides the dancing and the singing is that she won an Oscar for her role in Mary Poppins, and that's far and away compared to the other two. That didn't happen for the others. That's and that holds weight.
Couple final thoughts here. Try speak from the heart. Last thoughts, final thoughts. Don't get lost in your papers. I appreciate it. You did the homework, but let's hear it off the cuff, from the heart. Final thought. Why is your performance better? And we're starting with you, Dan.
At the end of the day, the music and the compassion behind Mary Poppins, it warms your heart. It brings you to a place. Every single song that she sings, every message that she has, it touches you personally. And that's an impact that neither of your characters had. Did I enjoy watching Hans Gruber? Yes, it was a fun watch. It was enjoyable, but it didn't affect me. And it didn't affect mankind and the people in general. Whereas Mary Poppins is I mean, she changes everything, and everybody knows Mary Poppins, and everybody was affected by Mary Poppins and the messages that she had, the songs that she had, the positivity, and just everything that she brought to the table. And your characters didn't affect the world the way that Mary Poppins did.
Adry?
I would say with Mary Poppins, yes, she did get an Oscar, but I think it's a different time period we're talking about, and the expectations were differently. I think when you look at it without the nostalgia, her performance, while good, was flat because the character itself was flat, and that hurts the overall impact of the movie and of her performance as a debut performance. I think Natalie Portman did a decent job, especially for a child actress in that movie, but I think it's a forgettable performance and the greater thing of her career. Alan Rickman, on the other hand, I think he did something that had a lasting impact. And yes, he didn't get an Oscar for it, but action movies are rarely Academy acclaimed anything because the Academy has weird standards. But I think he changed what we expect from villains. I think since then, everybody's been trying to do that thinking and smarter movie villain, and more importantly, I think it's a movie that endures. Both as an action movie, it's still rewatchable today. As a holiday movie, it's rewatchable. It's a family movie. It's pretty much just about any kind of movie you would want.
Jonathan, final thoughts.
First on Julie Andrews, she did win the Oscar, I will say, and in 1993 she did say that she believes that it was based upon sentimentality and not on the strength of her role. I will say for Alan Rickman, he was a great villain. But he set the stage for better roles to come. He built up for other people to build upon, and he was just the first step. Now for Natalie Portman, the vulnerability of her role, the moments where she's talking to Leon about how she's falling in love with him, the moment where she's embracing her own sexuality, embracing the own bitterness inside of her and learning how to channel that into something positive positive, that talks about her going to Juilliard after the movie. Just the way that they frame her character is so nuanced and so deep and so passionately just it's beyond anything else that we're talking about today because of how strong her performance is. As a 12-year-old, bringing to the table a massive character arc from someone who goes from a situation of abuse to a situation of power.
But half of that is what you... Sorry. Oh, there it is.
Whew, shit.
Oh my God.
Right?
I mean, if you're complaining about this one, just unsubscribe. I mean, that was fantastic arguing for your first out there. Okay,
That's fun.
really, I've literally filled with notes to take this seriously. Dan and Randall, I'm coming to you guys on the couch. Any chatter first before you give us thoughts?
Well, yeah, a lot of people on Twitter had their ideas. Matthew McConaughey in Dazed and Confused, Billy Polihan, Lupita Nyong'o in 12 Years a Slave was a favorite of a lot of people. Jason Schwartzman in Rushmore, Kate Winslet in Heavenly Creatures. There's a guy named Brendan McBrayer on Twitter who is very passionate about Brendan Fraser in Encino Man.
Okay,
that's awesome.
I don't know if it's because they share a name. I'm not exactly sure. But, yeah, that is a very... I could see great things about all these arguments. There are some flaws in these arguments as well that I can see. Yeah, I don't know, Randall. You're as the resident fan on the fan cam today. Where are you leaning?
Yeah, it's definitely pretty hard. They had really good points and good takedowns as well. But honestly, I would say I'm probably leaning more towards Jonathan right now.
It's interesting. I got to talk this out because I want to make it clear.
Yeah.
I had sort of signed Jonathan off. And it became sort of a two-man race. But then Jonathan really sold me a lot in his rebuttals.
Yeah.
It helped. But I don't know if it was enough because I do think comparatively it is the more forgettable performance compared to the other two. That said, you did a very valiant effort there about the vulnerability and pulling out the examples that did make me bring it back up in the attention. I don't think it's enough for me, though, to knock out sort of what I think Dan did some fantastic arguments about just how Mary Poppins affected people in that role. And not just because it's the more known role, but just because it's such a powerful, unforgettable performance and everything she did. That said, I think you are knocking Alan Rickman out a little bit unfairly with some of the things you were saying, because I do think Adry did a very good job at clarifying why that villain role is such a detour and change of pace and what things are compared on with the villains. But then I don't know. I
think
ballsy to go against Mary Poppins clearly are fine.
If I'm being honest, I think everybody's going a little unfairly towards everyone else's picks. Yeah, I think everybody was knocking a little too hard and
Playing
it came
the
off
game
a
maybe
little
too much.
It's hard for me to parse that.
I got stuck here. So here, I'll make the call. Do you want any other rules before I make this call? Because I do have a lead.
I think that I would also put it between Dan and Adry personally. It's very close, but I'm leaning one way, but it's not. It's
well,
very
do we have a poll up too?
We do have a poll. We have a Twitter poll.
I think it came down to then it did I did come down between Adry and Dan for me. Very, very valiant close, and I know you're still in this, Jonathan. But Dan he's a bank robber and all these things, and comparing it just sort of took me out when Adry really brought in sort of the seductiveness, the fact that you're cheering for him, the range that you sort of showed me gives me the leaning to give Adry the first point. Very, very close though.
I can go home now. I'm good. That's all I needed.
There's a little bit more. Dan, what are you in the Twitterverse saying?
And you know I love Alan Rickman.
So Adry gets the first point. The Twitterverse, it's actually a pretty close, but started out pretty close, but it was a runaway. 19% voted for Julie Andrews, 32% for Natalie Portman. Alan Rickman, almost with a majority, 49% of the voters on our Twitter poll picked him as the best feature film debut.
That hurt a little bit, by the way. I would cut off my right
arm. It was very close. I mean, that was really a good way to start the show. So you guys are bringing it. Just based on the notes, it was just a slight edge. So good job, kudos. Let's move it on to round two. Guys, if you had a time machine, what single change would you make to a movie? We're starting with you, Adry, this time. What's the single change you would do if you had a time machine to make a movie better?
So I had a really long time to think about this question because a single change... The movies I wanted to fix require a lot more than a single change. So what I picked instead, and I think this will be revolutionary, I would have been in that whatever meeting was done, and I would be like, I'm sorry, the answer is no. The Hobbit has to be just one movie. That would be my single change.
Okay. We'll hear why in a minute. Jonathan, you're next.
My change would take one of the greatest trilogies of all time and make it go from great to perfect. I would recast Katie Holmes in Batman Begins with Maggie Gyllenhaal.
Putting Katie Holmes in, got it, to keep that continuity. Out, Katie Holmes out, Maggie in. Okay, for Batman. Dan.
I'm jumping into the DeLorean and I'm going to recast Hayden Christensen. I'm not going to have Hayden Christensen in the role of Anakin Skywalker. That needs to be done immediately. If I could do it right now, I would.
All right, all three, I think, worthy tasks, worthy uses of a time machine. Let's go back to you, Adry. Why?
Okay, so with The Hobbit, this movie should have worked. It was the perfect director. It's a guy who knows the world through and through. He had his special effects team back. He had the perfect location. I mean, you had all the stars were aligned for this to work. It's an area we're familiar with. We already want to see Middle Earth again. It's fantastic. It's familiar. And it had the perfect cast. I love the casting. I love Cumberbatch as Smaug. I love Freeman as Bilbo. Everything seemed to be perfect. And then they decided to take what is essentially 300 pages and make it into 474 minutes. How do you even do that? The book is shorter than any of the individual Lord of the Rings books. And in doing so, what we got was this bloated disaster full of filler that was almost unwatchable at times and deserved to be fast-forwarded through most of them. I think that single choice in forcing them to edit and make it one movie would make it spectacular.
Jonathan?
So in this situation, I tried to take a different tact. We're trying to take bad movies and turn them into good movies, which is admirable. I want to take one of the most critically acclaimed trilogies of all time, something that elevated the genre, and make it go from good to great. When you watch the Dark Knight trilogy back to back, there is a moment of just not understanding what's going on because suddenly Rachel is played by a different actress because Katie Holmes, nominated for a Razzie that year for Batman Begins, gave such a bad performance that she chose not to return. Maggie Gyllenhaal came in and ended up giving such a beautiful addition to Dark Knight, especially as the movie went along, that I think you could take Batman Begins, which is a phenomenal origin story, and take it from good to great by making Rachel Maggie Gyllenhaal the whole way through.
Dan?
So episodes 2 and 3 were the origin story of one of the most mysterious and complex villains that I think we've ever seen in cinema. And what we got when those episodes began was Hayden Christensen, poor delivery of lines, kind of flat, monotone, and when it wasn't flat, monotone, it was whiny. There was an obvious lack of chemistry between him and Natalie Portman. I think that you could barely understand that they were even in love or they were supposed to be in love. And surrounding this not so great acting is a lot of great actors doing a really great job. I mean, you've got Ewan McGregor doing an amazing job. You had, while not in episode 2 and 3, you had Liam Neeson setting the stage for what was going to be something really great. And then we have this kind of flat performance. Not only that, the chemistry between Obi-Wan and Anakin is crucial to sell this story. And that wasn't even there. I mean, you didn't even have fun and believe that they were really friends. Not really. And that the final scene in episode 3, when it comes to them kind of coming at arms, fighting one another and going against each other, you don't even really feel the stakes in that. You don't feel the emotional pull that you're supposed to, because it doesn't feel like two friends that are kind of having to come to this place. It was just like two people that happen to pass each other almost. It just didn't have that weight the way that it was supposed to, and it didn't do the character of Darth Vader justice. If you're going to go back and tell the origin story of a character like that, make sure that the right person is underneath the mask, and Hayden Christensen is not.
That's like the tip of the iceberg with those movies. Like, it doesn't address any of the deficiencies with episode 1, and it doesn't address any of the other deficiencies with episodes 2 and 3. Like, the script is unbearably bad.
I hate sand.
No, listen.
It's coarse
and
rough and irritating.
That line can be delivered better by literally anybody. It absolutely can.
My heart is beating, hoping that a kiss won't become a scar.
Right.
What?
And listen. At the end of the day, you've got people out there that could have delivered that line better and could have delivered that relationship better. Part of the reason that those lines are irritating is because of the way that they're delivered. It's not the lines themselves, and it's the same thing when you talk about having a bunch of great actors surrounding, and again, Obi-Wan was one of the best parts of the trilogy. If you add to that a decent actor, I mean, somebody that, you know, you could put Joseph Gordon-Levitt in that role and it would do better and it would feel better. There's weight there. There's some torture while still having the lightheartedness that Anakin is meant to have, that kind of carefree attitude. That kind of thing makes more sense and helps to sell the overall. I don't think that you need to change the lines or the rest of it. I think that while no movie is perfect and no script is perfect, but at the end of the day, those lines delivered properly still hold weight.
So is Joseph Gordon-Levitt what you're going with to replace Hayden Christensen, or who are you replacing Hayden Christensen with?
That's a suggestion. I could probably think of a couple more if you give me some time. But Joseph Gordon-Levitt is one of the people that I think would do a decent job of it.
We've had a day. So what are you thinking of? What are you
again, it wasn't about going back in time and casting. It was about going back in time and making sure that the individual didn't get cast.
So what you're saying is you're going to leave it up to Lucas again. You're going to leave it up to Lucas, who picked Hayden Christensen in the first place.
But Lucas also picked a lot of great actors, and that's my point. He picked a lot of great other people. Again, Obi-Wan is one of the strongest points in those three movies, and he did a great job in it. And Qui-Gon Jinn was fantastic as well. It was that one misstep of casting. And again, just for the sake of poking holes in some things while we're at it, because everyone's going after Star Wars real hard. In terms of Batman Begins was not the worst of the three movies, and to go back and change something like that to improve what is quote unquote a perfect trilogy, I would rather use my time machine to fix something in The Dark Knight Rises than I would ever use Batman Begins. Batman Begins was entertaining, and while she may have won the Razzie for it, I actually genuinely, and I'm not just saying this for movie fights, I preferred Katie Holmes to Maggie Gyllenhaal. I really did. And there are some scenes
there.
No, listen, and that's fine, but there are some scenes, especially that scene when they're tied up and the things about to the gas canisters are about to explode. It turns into a conversation where it's just like, tell me what's going on with you. I'm like, what? That didn't hold the weight. And then in the middle of everything, when she literally dies, I'm sorry, it just didn't hold any weight to it, because at the same time it was like, listen, Harvey, everything's going to be great and you're going to do all right, and then boom. I just didn't feel anything with that.
And I would argue that it holds no weight because of the cast change there, because there is that lack of continuity. You don't get time to fall in love with the character. You don't get time to get to know the character because of the way that they switch things up. Katie Holmes and Maggie Gyllenhaal do not look similar. They are not the same actor. But here's the thing,
though. She's a secondary plot device. Like, she's not essential to the film. I'm sorry.
Not actually. And if you make Rachel... You don't have to change a single moment of you don't have to change a single moment of dialogue, because the dialogue in Batman Begins is tight and well written. You don't have to change a moment of acting. You don't have to even speculate about whether or not someone could perform god-awful lines in a good way. Instead, all you have to do is imagine that someone who proved themselves in the second movie could do a better job in the first movie than someone who was critically panned. In all the reviews of Batman Begins, you hear something like, Holmes is just okay. Holmes is decent. What you could do is you can make Batman Begins, and with the effect of Batman Begins on The Dark Knight Rises, you could have, because Gyllenhaal would be in for the trilogy, you could have it affect, I don't want to change Dark Knight Rises, because change one thing, but you could have after effects that could echo throughout the rest of the trilogy, because you had a strong female character backing up Batman who could be the reason, because you can't change
anything
Nolan,
except for the casting of that.
Well,
and that's the challenge. And again, you're using a time machine to change something that really wasn't that broken. Whereas, and again, in terms of continuity, I mean, listen, I with all due respect to Terrence Howard, I did not lose a step when all of a sudden it was Don Cheadle. It was fine, and it was thrown away with a simple line of, "It's me, get used to it, it's fine, whatever." And that was fine. I don't have an issue with that. My brain didn't have trouble saying, "Okay, that's Rachel now." That's what happens, and it happens in movies all the time.
At the same time, you said you had a problem connecting with the character, and I would argue that is largely due to the fact that they didn't earn that relationship.
Because of Maggie Gyllenhaal's performance, not because of Katie Holmes.
I don't know why we're ignoring The Hobbit, because I think The Hobbit is the one that we need to talk. That's the elephant in the room.
Over here.
Yeah, everything was such loving life over here.
How in the world are you going to cut 9 hours of a movie down to 2.5?
You stick to the actual content you have before you. The book is 300 pages.
What are you going to cut? Tell me your plot.
Okay, let's go through this. I mean, the fact there's needless tie-ins to the original. They can all be scrapped. Maybe keep Frodo at the beginning, saying so you know it's who Bilbo is.
Okay,
beyond
that cuts out 20 minutes.
That cuts out a lot more than 20 minutes. It's every single extended edition is all of that, and you have at least 3 scenes of that in each of those movies. You can do without the songs.
30 minutes.
You can do without the dance. You can do without 3 hours of dragon
You would
sickness.
do without the world building. See, what you're telling me, the beauty of Lord of the Rings, the beauty of the Middle-earth universe, is that it's in the moments between the action where the characters are bonding and getting to know each other, you get to really see character development, because that's what it's good at. That's the beauty.
Not what we got. We got fluff and CGI fights with no stakes and almost slapstick comedy. If you had cut it down,
would you rather have it be like the book
on the characters.
Where Bilbo gets knocked out for the entire last battle and you get 4 pages of the battle? Would you rather have it do that?
I would rather do that than have a battle that is meaningless.
Meaningless? It's the stake of the entire Middle-earth universe.
I was excited because it was ending. Like, towards the end, you're just like, you've had so many needless side quests, so many fights with no stakes. You've been having angsting over the gold the whole time. Like, it's just so much filler.
So sure.
And I think what you want is those characters, and you can do that by cutting it down.
Cut it down to 2 movies. Take a 9-hour movie and make it 6. Do that. That makes sense. Cut off some of that needless fluff, but that's not what you're arguing. You're arguing make it 1.
If you can make any one of the Lord of the Rings books, each one of those is longer than The Hobbit. If you can make those into 1 movie, then you can make The Hobbit into 1 movie. There's no reason why you can't.
So my issue with yours is that it's already been done. The cartoon was very effective, and we don't need to go back. So, I mean, if you were going to, again, jump in a time machine and have it so that they don't do it at all and just rely on it, because, again, it's a children's book. It's not really fleshed out. It doesn't deserve a single feature film. Realistically, the best you could get is a cartoon, and, again, it's for kids. My problem with yours is that you're using the power of time travel to change this tiny little thing that really didn't bother many people. Mine, at least, at the very least, actually fixes something that I think the majority of the people that have problems with the prequels and the origin stories of Darth Vader is that Anakin Skywalker was not what they expected it to be. More importantly, what it should have been. It did not sell the gradual descent into the dark side. It did not sell any of the stakes associated with it. There was no relationship with his future wife and mother of Luke and Leia, nor was there a relationship with his mentor and his best friend Obi-Wan, who eventually had to put him in the state that he was in.
I have so many other issues with your movie.
All right, let's do final thoughts here. Go ahead.
Okay, I mean, with the Star Wars, I have so many issues with them. We have the midichlorians, we have the disgruntled spice miners, we have assassins droid that use poisonous bugs for some reason when we can just shoot someone and it'd be fine. We have horrible one-liners from not just him, from every character. Like, even Count Dooku has the twice the power, twice the pride, twice the fall.
But that's a Star Wars trope.
You shouldn't, when you're modernizing, if you're making a new trilogy, you can make a good script. The Jedis are idiots. Like, Anakin's been having temper tantrums the whole time, but okay, give him important tasks all the time. Like, there's so many problems with that movie that what you're doing, would it make it a little bit more tolerable, plausibly? But it doesn't fix anything. I still hate those.
And Jonathan's?
And with Kitty Holmes, comic book movies switch secondary characters all the time. It did not affect me at all. I think it's a secondary character. It's a plot device. She was going to be killed off in the second movie anyway. And I do think, with the casting, I think it worked to the benefit of the movies. I think in the first one, you wanted somebody who was sweeter vis-a-vis him, which I think Katie Holmes does really well. I think it's a good juxtaposition, one versus the other. And I think she had better chemistry with him than Maggie Gyllenhaal did. In the second movie, Gyllenhaal was better because she has a little bit more spice. She's a little bit more complicated. She can do that range, which was required in the second movie. But in the first one, the sweet lawyer actually worked well. So I think, and by the way, I went last night and I saw a lot of really dark forums online, and this is an ongoing debate, and there's a lot of people who still think she's great. So I honestly think it worked to the benefit of the movies, and I don't think it's that big of a deal.
Go ahead, John.
As a huge Tolkien fan, towards the end of his career, Tolkien was wanting to rewrite The Hobbit. He wanted to expand it, make it darker, make it longer. He realized that he didn't build enough universe because The Hobbit was the first movie he wrote. The Hobbit is, and when you read it, there's so much crammed into 300 pages because he's writing it as a children's book and he didn't have a whole lot of experience with writing before that. You're saying that you want to have a stool and you want to rip off 2 legs of the stool. When you have a one-legged stool, it's not a stool. Cutting down 9 hours to 3 hours does not give you a solid movie. It gives you a clusterfuck. It gives you a movie that cannot stand on its own. That's the problem, because you're not going to cut. There's so much that you can't cut out. The amazing performances of the movie, Christopher Lee's last living performance, Richard Armitage, Luke Evans, all these amazing side characters that are fleshed out so much more than in the movies than in the book that you cannot lose. Now, I mean, for Hayden Christensen, the directing of the movie is the problem. It's not the performance. Hayden Christensen, the same year as in between the 2 movies, gave a performance in Shattered Glass that's what's an amazing performances. It's it's an absolutely phenomenal movie. Hayden Christensen can act. It's the problem of the movie, and putting somebody else in his position just doesn't work. Now for Katie Holmes, if you take out a massive chunk of a movie, the movie can fall apart. I wanted to pick something that's realistic. I wanted to pick something that you can logistically accomplish, because what you're talking about is a massive undertaking that completely changes the entire goal of the movie. And you're trying to say that someone else can say Hayden Christensen's awful lines better. I'm saying do something that we know is proven to work, and do something that's realistic, and make that happen.
Dan, quickly go ahead.
So again, my challenge is that you've got time travel, right? And we have to weigh that. We have to weigh the time travel, okay? Your time travel is actually going to cost a bunch of people a bunch of jobs. We had 2 movies that were shot, and now all these key grips and all these costume designers and all these poor people, now they have nothing to do. And again, that's a problem. There's people that need jobs. In the case of yours, again, at the end of the day, you're taking time travel and going back to change something and replace somebody that at the end of the day, for all intents and purposes, Katie Holmes didn't want to do it. Katie Holmes did a great job, but it could have been literally anybody. I don't think that the changing Katie Holmes is the fix. I think if anything, maybe find somebody different from Maggie Gyllenhaal. That's the
Dan.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
Some folks on Twitter, Sean Murphy says make Ben Kingsley the actual Mandarin in Iron Man
that's a
3.
great one, yeah.
And Balder58 said they would keep the 3 Hobbit movies, but get Guillermo del Toro. The Katie Holmes Razzie thing, she did win the Razzie, or she was nominated in 2006. She was also awarded Most Tiresome Tabloid Target with Tom Cruise, so I think the Razzies just had a weird thing with Katie Holmes. As far as my opinion, it was fairly easy for me.
Me too this round, actually.
Yeah, it
got clearer
I thought it was
as we went.
really fairly obvious.
Let's see if we agree.
Let's see if we agree.
I think, just knocking out because I'm giving you more thoughts, I think, Dan, sadly, they got you because it's more than just the casting. The script, the directing, there's a ton of stuff that's wrong with that movie, and Jonathan even put on a good point of Shattered Glass. Like, he can act. So that eliminated me. It then came between Hobbit and Katie and Maggie Gyllenhaal. And man, Jonathan's passion really sort of swayed me in a way that I was very impressed with what you said about Hobbit. But then at the same time, Adry makes very good points of that movie not working. But here's where I got stuck, and I might be against you, Dan. But you said something very interesting that everyone sort of glossed over. Jonathan did, which stayed with me. The reason that people have problems in Dark Knight Rises is because they couldn't build up the chemistry to know that was the same person. It sort of threw people off. That was a fascinating thing that I hadn't thought about. And I also kind of respected the point of, like, you made a small change that's a little bit more realistic, whereas it's such a broad thing of how do you make it one movie. There's so many variables that while I like the idea of it, I'm going with Jonathan, but Dan's giving me a look.
I thought Adry won that round easily. Personally, I think that they were quibbling over tiny little one detail things that in Dan's case did not affect the overall product at all, and I think in Jonathan's case was a minor change that would have led to the same thing, whereas I thought Audrey's laid out an argument for a fundamental change that would have fixed the flawed product. So
yeah,
for
but
me,
see,
I thought it was cut and dry.
I was with you until Jonathan passionately proved that he cared about a lot of those things. Which
well, he
while
does.
we don't,
He cares about it.
While we don't, there are people that do, which he brought as part of his debate. So I don't want to get hung up on, well, The Hobbit was sucked and needs to be one movies, because I didn't get clear enough of what that means.
Movie fights, not book fights.
I thought pulling the fact that he connects the two movies more, it kind of surprised me in a way that I will overrule it and take the heat if I got to, but I got to give the point to Jonathan on that round. It was very close though. Definitely, you were out though, Dan.
I appreciate that very much.
I think we all agree
I
on
was
that one.
definitely out. As long as we're all clear that I was out, that's the key.
If you had said 2 movies, I would have walked out and left.
Exactly.
That
2 movies.
That would have been amazing.
It was I think you could still make 2 movies that the fans would be happy with. It was a little broad for me, but
the
go ahead.
Twitter poll disagrees. 10% back to Gyllenhaal over Holmes and Batman Begins. Right now, Hayden Christensen has 47%.
Of course.
Hobbit has
Star Wars,
43%.
really?
Wait, so Hayden won the poll?
Yeah, Hayden won the poll.
Yeah, they're not thinking straight.
Currently.
It sounds right. It sounds right, but there's way more you got to fix than just Hayden.
We know the internet loves Anakin Skywalker, right?
All right. Wow, this is a fun show. Regardless of what happens, you guys are bringing it. Round 3. In honor of the Razzies, which we just said don't matter.
Segue.
We wanted to ask what is the worst performance of 2016. There were a lot of them. There were some really bad ones. Razzies came out, Oscars came out. Let's talk about the worst. Jonathan, what worst performance?
Kevin Spacey as Mr. Fuzzy Pants in 9 Lives.
Okay, we can go through. Kevin Spacey, 9 Lives. Dan.
Jared Leto Joker. Sorry, internet.
Adry.
Robert De Niro and Dirty Grandpa.
And Dirty Grandpa. Okay. Jonathan, you want to start?
Whew. The Beauty.
Oh, wait. This is actually a trick question.
Ooh. Oh, Jesus.
I knew that you were going to do something like
Yes! Dun, dun, dun.
I know how much
I don't know if there's a graphic. Because Adry thought it was happening, so I was trying to throw her off. It is happening. Guys, being that you just picked the worst performances, please tell me why they are the best performances of 2016.
I'm so upset.
So Jonathan, you'll be fighting for Kevin Spacey in 9 Lives as the best performance of the year. Dan, you'll be fighting for Jared Leto as the Joker for best performance of the year. And Audrey, you'll be fighting for Robert De Niro and Dirty Grandpa as the best performance of the year. This is hey, we wanted to throw something at you because you got to be the best fighter here. We're back to you, Jonathan. Why was Kevin Spacey the best performance of the year in 9 Lives?
So I have been waiting to see 9 Lives for a long time because of Dan, Summer Movie Month with Dan. Summer Movie Report, and I watched 9 Lives, walking in expecting to want to shoot myself as I was sitting there. I laughed my ass off as I watched that movie. 9 Lives is this generation's The Room. Kevin Spacey's performance is so unbelievably convincing. It is wonderful. Watching him do a vocal performance to a cat whose lips aren't even moving, but you still get the intonations, even though the cat's not even animated. The only reason 9 Lives works is because Kevin Spacey commits so fucking much to that role that he blows you away. I absolutely loved seeing a drunk cat stumble across a living room with Kevin Spacey's slurred voice going, "I never liked this rug anyway." Kevin Spacey is one of the most convincing vocal performers of the alive today. It's why we love House of Cards. It's why we love so many of his performances, and I loved him in 9 Lives.
All right, Dan. Jared Leto's Joker. Why was that the best performance of the year?
The task of following up Heath Ledger's Joker it's a daunting task, and what Jared Leto did is go there and then some. Jared Leto committed to that role in every sense of the word. Not only did he commit full on, dedicate himself in every way, off the camera. He's sending gifts and stuff to the actors, and he's pranking them in that way just so that he stays in character. He is 100% committed to the character of Joker. That movie, Suicide Squad, was not an enjoyable movie, but the best part of Suicide Squad was by far Jared Leto's Joker. There was torture, there was confusion, there was a levity and an upbeat kind of nature that actually Heath Ledger's Joker kind of lacked a little bit, if you want me to be honest about it. And Jared Leto's Joker actually brought a little bit more comedy, a little bit more in line with what you see a Mark Hamill doing and things like that, and that was very interesting. You know, with 9 Lives, again, I think that was a big disappointment for Kevin Spacey. I think, you talked about House of Cards. House of Cards is one of the best shows on Netflix, and to go from something like House of Cards to 9 Lives, I mean, the movie, there are so many better non-animal mouth moving movies. Homeward Bound, perfect example of that. Willie doesn't say a word in Free Willy, and he does a better job of conveying emotion than Kevin Spacey sitting in a voice recording booth for however many hours it was. Jared Leto makes you feel like he is absolutely insane, like he is capable of anything, whether it be killing Robin, terrorizing Batman, or converting Harley Quinn, a perfectly sound-minded psychiatrist, into a lunatic herself. Jared Leto sells that movie, and Jared Leto's the only reason why I'm excited about the DCEU in general.
Adry.
De Niro, I think it's a very bold and I think brave choice for an actor to having such a serious career, all of a sudden take this turn and say, I'm committing to comedy and I'm going to be awesome at it. And that's what he did in this movie. I think it's a movie with so much heart. It's a story about redemption. You see an old man who is bitter at the beginning and you don't even like him at the beginning because he's so, he's like racist and he has all these comments. In the end, he's a hero. He stands up for people. I think it's a relevant movie to this era where we have so much discrimination. To see someone who has this backstory, he's a veteran, he has all this backstory, but he's still standing up for people. It's a bonding movie. You see him with his grandchild, and that dynamic is beautiful, and that all is on his shoulders, and he does such an amazing job of doing a heartfelt comedic performance that I think that should be considered the best performance of this year. Jared Leto, I think the character has a lot of issues. I think from the design, the character had issues, and his performance just made it worse. I think the best thing he does is creepy effectively, and nobody wanted to watch that creepiness. And I think it put off people, and given that on the shoulders he was standing for him, it was just a letdown.
You have to do something different. You can't just do the same thing when it comes to the Joker.
If I want to see a Hot Topic Joker, I will go to Hot Topic and watch a 12-year-old do a better performance than Jared Leto did in Suicide Squad. He was god-awful in that movie. When he's sitting with those knives around him and he's doing his
that laugh, even in the I disagree wholeheartedly. That laugh, even in the trailer, you don't even see him, and you hear that laugh echoing in the background. That scared the ever-loving crap out of me.
Are you using Suicide Squad's lying marketing?
Yeah, but that's not the point though, because at the end of the day, that laugh was a part of the movie, and that laugh was perfect. I thought that was pitch perfect to the Joker.
He's more like a penguin.
Not to mention the fact that at the end of the day, Jared Leto's Joker did something different with the character, and more importantly, he committed full on. Your actors were both phoning it in. They were doing it. They just didn't want to be there. You say what you will about the performance. Maybe you don't like it. I happen to love it. It's one of my favorite performances of the year. But you don't like it. That's fine. At the end of the day, you can say whatever you want about it. He went in 110%. He gave it all he had, and he left it all out there.
Let's talk De Niro.
I will agree with you that Kevin Spacey was phoning it in. I think the cat lines are harder to say because, I mean, he's just standing behind a booth. But the beginning scenes, he was playing this, like, short-tempered mogul. This should have been a walk in the park for him, and it was still painful to watch.
It's the same basic character he plays on House of Cards.
The scene with him talking to Christopher Walken and they're going back and forth with cat puns is hilarious. The dynamic between them, Walken comes out on screen and he is peak Walken and they're going back and forth like old buddies. And you brought up House of Cards. How amazing is it that Kevin Spacey plays a cat when we know him from House of Cards, where the first thing he does in the movie is strangle a dog?
He doesn't do a cat. He doesn't do a cat convincingly.
Even if we forgive the fact that he's a bad voice actor as a cat, which I think he's a horrible voice actor as a cat. But just going to his actual human scenes where he's playing type, he's playing it like he's phoning it in. And we've seen him play the cell-center guy before. We see it every other week on Netflix, and he does it poorly.
We are ignoring De Niro here, and I don't want to do that.
No,
it is a great performance.
I don't want to see Robert De Niro say that you look like a keynote speaker at a butt-fucking convention. See, De Niro has done good comedy before. He was in Meet the Parents. He was even in decent ones recently, like The Big Wedding, which wasn't good, but it was at least better than fucking Dirty Grandpa.
Careful with the F-bombs, Jonathan.
Sorry, you're not Max Landis, Jonathan. You don't get to drop F-bombs whenever you want.
I admit that the crudity in this film is relentless, but I think it's with a purpose. I think they're trying to push the limit, and when he has that redemption, it makes it all the better. When you see this guy who's making gay jokes and racist jokes all of a sudden stand up for someone, it's a whole arc, and it's beautiful. I think the way that he's able to do
arc. He's exactly where he left off.
It is a racist joke.
It's a man who changes with his relationship with his grandson, and I think they both become better because of it. I think it's a relevant movie. I think seeing a veteran in this was an amazing thing.
He desecrates the veteran
elderly
role.
People having
at the veterans
fun
hospital, he's talking about fucking teenagers.
I think this is a movie for the ages. I'm sad to see that you did not pick up on these things, but I do think it's so important and by the way, this is a movie that's so important. It shows us veterans having this like post-war experience and rebonding with their families.
I'm sorry, I can't stand for Dirty Grandpa becoming a veteran.
Also a good advertisement against.
I can't allow it.
It's also like a danger of advertisement for roofing in that movie too. It's like this movie just gives so many layers and it's on his shoulders.
Robert De Niro is perfectly capable of comedy. We've seen it. Same thing with Kevin Spacey. What we saw in those two movies was neither of those things. They were not funny. They were not what they were supposed to be. Jared Leto is a complex actor. He's an Oscar-winning actor, and he added a level of depth and complexity to that Joker role that I did not think was possible. Because the reality is, Heath Ledger did a great job.
Jared Leto
takes it up a notch. He turned it to 11.
I'm letting you have that final thought.
Thank you.
Final thoughts.
I think for Jared Leto, I think it's barely a role to begin with because he was almost cut out of his own movie. I think he has cringeworthy moments most of the time. I cannot stand that laugh. I think at best you can say it was polarizing, but in reality it was bad. And with Kevin Spacey, I think his performance, I mean, even if we forgive the cat stuff, the parts that he should have been great in, he just phoned it in. I think De Niro's performance has a beautiful arc. I think what he does is irrelevant, important, bold, and I think it's the kind of movie that people should rewatch if they haven't already, because I think it's being misjudged because the performance was spectacular.
Jonathan?
In Dirty Grandpa, they make jokes about post-traumatic stress disorder. They make jokes about the war record. They make jokes about so many. If you want to say that it brings honor to things, you are simply lying. Now, for Jared Leto, it made me want to take away his Oscar. His scenes with Harley Quinn are weirdly rapey in a weird, sadistic way that is
psychopath.
Beyond the point of what a Joker should even be, because it becomes a caricature. Jared Leto's Joker is a caricature beyond anything that we've ever seen before, especially following something like Heath Ledger. Now, for Kevin Spacey, guys, Kevin Spacey delivering lines like "I thought you died of a Botox injection" as a cat is one of the most entertaining things of the year. That movie you walk into and you love it because you're sitting there and you're watching a great actor put in a great voice performance. His scenes when he's a live action person are phenomenal because he knows how to do a boardroom member, and I disagree. The scenes where he is in the boardroom with his people and he's going over what gift he should buy for his daughter, they're convincing because you believe him as a mogul.
Jonathan was on the line for me because and Dan, I was coming to you because I kept listening. Is he liking this performance because it's bad? But he did never waver.
This was easy for me. This was so easy for me. Audrey sounded like she was choking down the vial coming down her throat. Jonathan sounded like he was 100% full of every kind of horse shit you could be. And Dan convinced me that Jared Leto was good at Suicide Squad. So that my vote's with Dan.
Randall, thoughts?
That's the same for me. I thought Dan had the best argument.
No, it's the same for me as well.
Not the one I wanted to win.
Because I was trying to find, because I was looking for faults in it, because I was leaning towards Dan as well. But I will give both Audrey and Jonathan credit for sticking to your guns, because even you started swaying to the Room performance, but then you never wavered on the fact that a great voiceover performance. He knows how to be in a boardroom. Oh my God! And the veteran spin you did. Oh my God! Kudos. Very, very valiant efforts, but I do think Dan swayed me as well.
Oh my God!
And it really, I wrote it down. They were phoning it in, and Jared, we can admit Jared was committed to the role. So you pulled that out for the win there, Dan, for the point.
When it was worse actor, I thought you were gonna get out knocked out immediately.
It was anybody's
I was
game.
ready to be
that
super
round.
passionate about it. Andy knows I can't stand that movie.
I don't like it either. Round 4. But here you go. Jared Leto just won something. Performance of the year.
Well done, sir.
From Twitter, too.
Oh, yeah. That was a Twitter poll?
Yeah, Twitter.
And it was a trick question?
It says, round 3 in other Razzies, what is the best performance of 2016? Trick question. And it says Jared Leto with 46%.
Well, there he goes.
Kevin Spacey with 31%.
He nailed it.
He won something.
To be fair, nobody should have voted for De Niro. That is.
Oh, God.
All right, here we go. Round 4, in honor of the Oscar nominations that came out this week, we want to know, there were 9 nominees. Dan, we've talked about this. I don't like it. They should have to stick to their guns and pick 5.
It's a double-edged sword because
then some
it does
films
give
don't get
recognition
attention.
to some more films, and it'd be great to get attention to more films.
I saw Brooklyn because they nominated it last year.
So that's good, but also, there is more prestige to the 5-picture system. So when we do our awards, which came out today, we stay to 5. I see both sides, but I grew up in the era where there were 5 nominees. Those were the 5. And even when they do 8 or 9, they still don't nominate all the right. There's still people griping, so I don't even know why they do it.
Here's where we gripe. They had 9 nominees, correct? It was 9, not 8. Yeah,
9.
There were 9 nominees. You can have 10. What was the 10th? What was the most overlooked film not announced in the 9 for the best picture slot of this year's Oscars? This time we're back to you, Dan. Number 1 choice. What's your choice?
My choice was Swiss Army Man.
All right. Let's hear the choices.
I picked Sing Street. Excuse me.
Sing Street. Okay.
Silence.
And Silence. 3 great films. All right, let's hear it. Back to you, Dan. Why is your now again? Can we settle? We like these films. These are great films. You can give me a little bit why they're great, but again, what I'm listening for here is why is that film worthy of the over the other 2 to be in that Best Picture category?
What Swiss Army Man does is something very different from not only the other 2 movies, but also all the movies that are nominated for the Best Picture this year. It is a totally different story that we have never even come close to hearing before, and I don't think anybody can argue with that. You've got performances from both Paul Dano and Daniel Radcliffe, some of their best work as well. The whole movie hinges on their 2 performances, and where other movies you may have some interesting songs, you may have some interesting scenery and some great backstory to kind of work with, but at the end of the day, you're talking about 2 characters lost in the wilderness, just making it by, and they hold you for the entire 137. Nope. It's a 97-minute movie altogether, and they hold you for every single minute. I was glued to my seat watching what's going to happen, where's it going to go. It was interesting. It was different. It was a breath of fresh air. In addition, we've talked about it before, the Academy doesn't really give as much attention to comedies as it should. And we've seen it with other movies. None of us mentioned Deadpool, but we all talked about it before. There are movies that deserve some level of attention, and the Oscars at the end of the day is one of those forums to kind of to shine light on movies that may not have all otherwise been seen. And that's what I think nominating Swiss Army Man would do. A lot of people, everybody needs to see this movie. If you haven't seen it and you're in the audience, please do. I'm not even saying it for the fight. It's a very entertaining, it's beautifully shot. You need to see this movie, and it's certainly better than these 2 and others.
Adry?
I think the obvious one out was Sing Street, and Sing Street should have been on that list. I think it's a movie. At face value, you would think it's almost like a simplistic movie because it's teen comedy drama with a rock band, but it's not. This is so heartwarming, so layered. You have these completely unknown actors doing nuanced, deep performance. It's one of the first times that I see an actually well-depicted teenager that doesn't annoy me. They're so beautifully done. And beyond that, it's not just light fare. It plays with ideas of like dream versus reality, that sense of nostalgia. What does identity mean? How does music serve to connect us? And I think all those layers make it both a specific movie to that time, like age, but also a universal kind of feeling. And there are very few movies who can capture both those layers. And I think that makes Swing Street a little bit ahead above these other two. If I can address Swing, sorry, do you want to finish with Silence first, or do you want to? Can we start?
Let's hear Silence. And we'll come back to you. Yep.
Silence is the passion project of one of Hollywood's greatest living directors. The movie is based on a true story, one of the best books of the 20th century in Shusaku Endo. In 1988, Scorsese was given a copy of the book, and since that year, he's been trying to get this movie made. He's been agonizing over the script. This is the first movie that he's written since 1995's Casino, and he poured his heart and soul into this movie. This movie brings up deep philosophical questions about the meaning of faith and the meaning of courage, and whether you can sacrifice someone else's welfare for your own, or whether you should sacrifice your eternal destination for the lives of others. The deep themes that are brought up from Silence transcend faith and transcend ideas of religion, and become a deeply human story about what you are willing to give up for someone else. It's a deeply selfless movie, and it is a movie that stays with you and eats at you as you're sitting in this, watching the credits and after you've left the theater.
I'll be honest with you. I'm going to start really quickly. If you stayed beyond the credits and after you've left the theater of Silence, God bless you, because the movie itself was 3 hours long. Yeah, 3 hours. That is, I mean,
which is not unheard of for the Oscars.
No, but at the same time, while I agree with some of the themes that you're talking about that were conveyed in the movie, it could have easily been done in a significantly less amount of time. It's definitely not Scorsese's best work, not by a long shot.
Yeah, I think one of the problems with passion projects in general is sometimes they forget to edit down a little bit. I agree with you. It was very long. I do not need 2 hours and 41 minutes for what is essentially a would you rather question. It had pacing issues. There's moments that feel repetitive, like how many fumiers do we have to step on? How many torture scenes do we need? How many confrontations with the Inquisition do we need? Like, there's scenes that keep getting repeated, and again, a little editing would have gone a long way to help that movie be stronger.
Not to mention extremely distracting Portuguese and Hispanic accents from British actors. It took me out of the movie completely. I'm just like, you could do better than that.
Garfield's performance, I think, is almost untouchable. He gives one of the best performances of the year, along with Driver. Their accents are very on point. I feel like in saying that the movie is too long, that it drags on too long, you are missing the beauty of how Silence is created. Silence takes you along with the people as they experience the torture. You understand the tension they are feeling, because you are sitting there, you are watching every single person step on the fumier, you are watching them go through it, and you are sitting there tense, and you are on the edge of your seat because you don't know what they're going to choose. You go through it with them, you live the movie with them. That's the beauty of it. Now, for Swiss Army Man, yes, comedies don't get recognized enough at the Oscars. I completely agree there. But then pick Deadpool. Pick a widely acclaimed movie. Don't pick a movie that is widely divisive. A movie that half the critics didn't like. A movie that people walked out of Sundance at. A movie that people did not click with because it is as much of a directorial passion project as Silence, but it doesn't work. The themes presented in Swiss Army Man, they undermine their own themes in their own movie. The script is awkward and makes it awkward and repulsive and unfocused. It is not Best Picture caliber at all. And Sing Street. The only reason John Carney has never been nominated for anything for his movies except for Best Original Song, and he didn't even get that this year. And that's because of course, Drive It Like You Stole is phenomenal. But that's because the Weinsteins didn't do any campaigning for their movie. That's because they short-shrifted that. They wouldn't let Screen Junkies do their own showings. They shot that down. Sing Street didn't get nominated because the production company was lazy. That's the only. It's a fine movie, but Oscar politics is an important thing. There is a way to get nominated, and Sing Street didn't even follow its own rules.
It's an entertaining. Sing Street's an entertaining boy meets girl musical.
Here's the thing. They had I get that they had a higher. It was a harder road to do because it is an Irish movie, and because in the mentality of the Academy, there's like a room for one musical, and La La Land was apparently it. That said, I think they disregarded it way too quickly. I think the Golden Globes were correct in having it among their nominees because it is that nuanced of a performance and that interesting of a movie. That said, going back, I do have an issue with Garfield's performance. I would have switched Driver and Garfield up. I think the boyishness, innocence of Garfield did not lend itself to the gravitas that role
That
required.
is the way it is in the book, though.
And
Rodriguez is a young, impressionable, and Driver is the staunch, older man who's leading him through the journey. That's why Driver sacrifices himself.
I don't think his boyishness worked in this movie. Again,
You just said that it did, though.
No, I just said the opposite, that it didn't work. I think his boyishness did not work.
Okay, my bad. I misunderstood.
I would have switched the two of them up rather than have him as is, because I think he couldn't muster that kind of weight. And I think when you look at the secondary characters were so good, the Inquisitor and the Village Elder, he couldn't keep up by that little bit, and it actually bothered me. And with Swiss Army Man, it relies on its novelty, and there needs to be something more than just novelty to be a Best Picture winning. It's a very hard sell of a movie. I don't think it's even rewatchable, to be honest, because how many flatulence jokes can you take? And the erection compass and all the other.
But that's the problem with Swiss Army Man, and we didn't interrupt each other at all in our last fight, but I have to for Swiss Army Man, because that's how a majority of the audience was turned off to it. They heard flatulence jokes. They saw, Harry Potter's wiener directing people to different places, and they turned their brains off, and they're like, no, I can't handle that. It's too much. It's too crude. It's too nothing. At the end of the day, this is a beautifully shot movie that effectively displays the dangers of loneliness and what happens when two people build relationships and they build bonds. That's a real thing, and those themes were conveyed beautifully. And again, when you talk about walking people through and having them see what the people went through in silence and all that things, I mean, again, there's a variety of movies that do so and do so better, where it's not just gratuitous and over the top, and it's just like punching you in the face with it. And again, over 3 hours. And with Sing Street, again, if it was snub Best Original Song all day long. Sing Street had some amazing music, but beyond that, again, it was an entertaining movie. I cannot say bad things about Sing Street. I genuinely enjoyed Sing Street. I respected Silence for what it was. I didn't love it. It wasn't what I wanted it to be. It's not that I didn't get the themes. It's not that I didn't understand the questions it was asking me. It's just it could have been done tighter, better, and clearly. With Sing Street, I had fun. I definitely had fun. But again, I don't think that it really caused me to question anything. It didn't really cause me to think a little bit more than beyond singing along and enjoying this love story on the screen. This movie, Swiss Army Man, causes you to question all manner of things, and simple things like whether fart jokes and boner jokes are funny to you, and more complex things like what does it mean to be lonely? What does it mean to be an outcast? What does it mean to be by yourself?
Final thoughts. I'm taking that as your final thoughts. Go ahead, Adry. Final thoughts.
Okay, so Swiss Army Man, I will give it props for being one of the most creative films this year, but it's very off-putting to a lot of people. I love magic realism, and I feel like they relied on the fart joke as a gimmick to grab attention. They could have picked almost any other device for their magic realism that wouldn't have relied on something so crude, and it would have been infinitely more effective, because literally people were walking out because of that. And with Silence, again, those tiny little differences in casting would have gone a long way, and a little bit of editing, and I think it's the result of it being a passion project. It just took its toll. Sing Street, this was probably one of my favorite movies of the year. It could have been a vapid movie, because teen comedy dramas are like all the time, and to be able to make it nuanced and make it have audiences connect to it and have it be a conversation of what music means and what is the value of dreams and what is reality, being able to capture that sense of nostalgia to our youth, like the sense of what does it mean to be an identity and what does that mean when you're a teenager in that awkward stage, like all those layers, so beautiful and so nuanced, and such deep performances from people we've never seen before. Like I think it's a precious film, and I can't imagine I would have, off topic, I would have probably put it over long on it, but I think it's just an amazing movie.
Jonathan, final thoughts?
For Swiss Army Man, you're giving me great arguments for why Swiss Army Man would deserve Best Cinematography or Best Actor. I would not debate that. It's a beautifully directed film. It looks wonderful, and the performances are good, but there's not enough weight to it. Swiss Army Man, in the end, is a story about people stalking someone and showing up on their front lawn at the end. It's a collection of erection jokes and flatulence jokes. I don't want to see more scenes of Paul Dano's shorts going poof. It's not Best Picture caliber. Now for Sing Street, it's a movie. Again, you're arguing very well why it would be Best Original Song, stuff like that. There's great music in it, but the fact of the matter is it couldn't even get Best Original Song, and that's the fault of the marketing team itself. That's the fault of the company behind it itself. As a movie itself, it doesn't deserve a Best Picture nod because it's little more than a story. It's a coming of age movie. It's not even the best coming of age movie of the year. Edge of 17 blows it out of the water. Sing Street is a good movie, but it is nothing anywhere near Best Picture. There's skill and craft that must be taken into consideration. It takes a concept that's been done a million times and does it passably. Silence, is from a director who's been nominated for Best Picture 8 times. It's a phenomenal movie with deep themes and deep questions that it asks you. It's beautifully done, and it is one of the best movies of the year.
Dan.
Yeah. A lot of people online had their own picks.
Watch all 3 of these, by the way.
Yeah, no, they're all very
The
good.
Nice Guys, Nocturnal Animals, Midnight Special, Edge of 17, Monster Calls, Nocturnal Animals again. So I do want to do one thing. Jonathan said that most critics didn't like Swiss Army Man. Currently holds a 69% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. The audience score is 74%. If you subset that to only top critics, it's about 50-50. But overall, including all critics, Swiss Army Man is fresh. So that's a half, as PolitiFact would say, it's half true.
Definitely.
It's true but
facts.
misleading. I have a way that I'm leaning. But
I have a way. I mean, to me, it came more about obviously who was taking the other ones down, in my opinion. I was trying to really listen to the negatives, and I just feel like one film didn't get as much hate as the other two.
For me, it wasn't the amount of hate; it was what was being said.
I mean, so just to lay it down, like I do think they got you on Silence a little bit in that it did need some editing and some of the stuff, the Passion Project problems that Adry said really took weight to me. You did say why the film was great, but then your argument against Sing Street that you sort of said it deserves it, but the marketing won't let it. But then the question is, what deserves a Best Picture slot? Yeah. So that sort of confused me. So you sort of gave it, you were admitting it deserved it, but then I don't know. And then for Swiss Army Man, I just thought Adry gave the best defense against it in addition to that. So I was leaning towards Sing Street and Audrey's arguments, but I'm curious, where did you guys lay?
I was actually leaning more towards Dan because of a different argument. I think that a lot of what was thrown his way and what a lot of people said was that it's too divisive, it's too silly. But I don't think that's necessarily a reason why it shouldn't be nominated. I think that better points were thrown out about the quality and the tone. I thought that there were negative points thrown out against Jonathan's movie pacing. I thought that there were points thrown out about the quality of Sing Street, that it was just
that's where I'm
a
trying to,
romance.
because I'm going through the note, because I didn't get a lot of Dan taking Sing Street down.
Well, it wasn't just Dan. I mean, it was kind of everybody. But I think that if I'm going movie to movie between Sing Street and Swiss Army Man, for me, the negatives, because that's also where I kind of landed, was that I thought that Sing Street was hit a little bit harder for being, hey, it's got some good music, but it's kind of a generic story. And I thought that the stuff going back at Swiss Army Man was that, well, it was too divisive and too niche. And for me, I think that that's more of a judgment than necessarily an opinion on the quality of the film. So that's why I tend to side a little more towards Dan, personally.
Let me ponder these notes again. Randall, anything to add?
No, I was pretty much split between Adry and Dan as well. I can't really choose between them. If I would have chose personally, I probably would have went with Captain Fantastic.
Captain Fantastic was very good. Yes.
One of my films that I would have chose, but I think all 3 of these are great films, and everyone should see them.
I'm just trying to think of, because I'm fair. The reason I'm edging this personality is just because in my notes I just saw more takedowns against Silence and against the other film a little bit more than I did, and that was from Adry. I got to give you the point. In my recollection of things, it was very close, but I'm just seeing where you guys said it. You both sold me on your films, and I don't even the divisiveness, but yeah, I didn't hear, and that's my it is if that it didn't happen, but yeah, there was a lot of talk about it's just a song, but I feel like you were saying a lot more. They were saying that's what you were saying when that you were saying a lot more that I've written down here. So it came down very slight, but my edging of my point system here, Adry got that point just barely. All right, moving on to round 5.
Here we go.
This is so tense.
So you were even, Dan, because you would have given the point to him early on. So both those points evened out, and you're judging.
Okay.
It was fascinating. It still worked out. Round 5. This is fun because Resident Evil came out, and there's 5 of those already.
Sure are.
I can't believe it. They're still making those movies. But apparently this is the final one. But that said, we wanted to ask not what the best Resident Evil movie is, because that just would have been boring. Because no one's seen them all. I haven't seen them all.
Please don't do that.
We want to know what's the worst franchise with 5 or more films. So you have to do some research and really think that over, because there actually are a lot of films
ton.
that have 5 or more. And usually if you make it 5 or more, it should be a good franchise. But we wanted to, you guys tell us why it's not. What is the worst franchise? Adry, starting with you. Worst franchise with 5 or more films.
This was the easiest one of the questions for me because I detest these movies, and that is the Twilight Saga, which, thanks to their splitting book, is up to 5 movies. Everything, and I mean absolutely everything from this movie, from the plot, the acting, the directing, the basic concepts of what is a decent relationship, vampires, werewolves, everything about this movie, the Mary Sue main character, everything is horrible. I cannot, I can't find a single redeeming quality, and preemptively, I would rather watch any of these franchises over and over again rather than watch the Twilight Saga a single time.
All right, let's hear what the other franchises are. Jonathan?
I pushed the envelope a little bit. I picked a franchise. It's really a true cinematic universe. I picked a series that is currently at 14 movies. Yeah. I picked what I'm dubbing the Air Buds cinematic universe. I like that more than Air Bud franchise. This movie has 14 movies, and also for me, I would much rather watch Twilight or Dan's pick than any of these.
So are you including movies. Space Buddies, all the Buddies films?
If you check on the internet, they include all 14.
Yeah, you're missing 2 Christmas movies too.
Yeah,
no, 2 Christmas movies. 14 Christmas movies.
There are some like knockoff Air Bud
Santa
movies.
Buddies.
Yeah.
Santa Paws.
The originals. Yeah.
Dan?
First, I want to thank both of my competitors here for giving me the pleasure of watching both Twilight and all 14 Air Buddies movies or Air Bud movies. However, after watching what was a lot of movies, I still have to stand very strong against Step Up. Step Up is a series that...
There are 5 of them?
There's 5 of them.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Now, are there 5 or more than 5?
And now, and nobody can tell me what that picture's from. It could literally be from any of them. That's the problem.
Tell me?
That is the problem. I can
You're
tell you, but I'm not going
to.
I know because I watch it. No, incorrect.
No,
it's
that's
not the first
one.
one.
That's Channing Tatum.
Hey, it's worth a shot.
I've seen all of them. Actually, really.
I'm embarrassed to know that that's not the first one. Here's the thing about Step Up. Step Up serves absolutely no purpose. You had your first movie with Step Up with Channing Tatum. Channing Tatum did a phenomenal job in Step Up 1, and if Step Up 1 was all it was, then so be it. But then they went ahead and just kept after it. The thing about the Air Bud franchise and the Twilight movies is that in the case of the Air Bud franchise, there was something new. There was a different story to tell every time. You had different sports that Buddy needed to play. He played basketball. He played volleyball. He played soccer. He played football. Golden Retriever, wide retriever. There were different things to do with those movies. And then there's puppies in the mix. And who doesn't love puppies and dogs, right? With Twilight, you had no choice but to go to the duration of movies or the length of movies that you did because there was a story to tell. There was a beginning. There was an end. And that was a beautiful love story. A beautiful love story between a young lady and a vampire that she happened to meet.
Okay, I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt, but that was not a beautiful love story.
It's a lovely love story.
It is a compelling love story.
No, I'm sorry. Under any rational and sense and a basic human decency tells me that this is not a beautiful love story.
But it didn't tell all the people who love it.
This is a legitimately harmful story. And the fact that it was successful makes it even more harmful. This is telling little girls that a guy sneaking into your room and watching you sleep is romance. That somehow we should be getting married at 17 and that it's okay to be in love with someone because we like their genes and their kid might be sexy. This is a horrible movie.
The kid might be sexy is not part of the movie. I think it's in the books.
No, it's in the 4th one. The Renesmee, whatever how do you pronounce that?
Renesmee.
The werewolf guy, he liked
Jacob.
He liked Mary Sue because in her genes was her soon-to-be born daughter, and he knew that was his soulmate.
It was a relationship bound by destiny and love.
I'm sorry.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing about Twilight. Okay, at the end of the day, Twilight was successful. Okay,
and that's
it was
the worst
successful.
Part of it.
No. But it's about the worst franchise with 5 or more movies. Twilight was successful. The Air Buddies franchise is successful. That's why they keep making more of them. Okay, with Step Up, if you look at the actual box office, it's dropping off. And one of the Step Up movies was actually in 3D, which in theory should increase the box office because we charge more for 3D, and it did not.
But they are still making money. They are still making money.
No, but it's a gradual decline, and that's the difference.
A gradual decline from way up here to right here is not
way
a
up
big
here
difference.
is like $63 million. It's
on
not
a $20 million budget,
and that's on the shoulders of Channing Tatum and the relationship that he had. But Channing Tatum's not even in it. That's the only good thing about Step Up. That's the only redeemable thing about Step Up. If nothing else, yes, fine, dancing, okay. But how many times must we step it up?
Here's
How
the
many
thing.
times before we've? I mean, come on.
My problem with both
How
of
many
yours.
times must we step
Must
on it?
please.
Your movie.
At least 5 more.
At least.
What you're arguing against is that a collect basically your movie is a music video compilation. It's a very well choreographed. It's a music video compilation. It's a very well done, well directed series of dances and numbers that maybe isn't great on plot, but it is beautiful to look at. The music is phenomenal. The soundtrack is great. It might be a little lowbrow. That's fine. People enjoy that kind of shit. The audience rating on Rotten Tomatoes is all very positive on Step Up movies. They're all fresh except for the last one.
But they're
which
not
is
coming
just
to the theaters.
barely under. They're coming to the theaters enough to keep them making those movies.
They're not coming.
And for Twilight, you might quibble with whether or not the romance of the movie is good. You might have an issue with how the relationship is presented. But you know the beauty of the Twilight franchise. The Twilight franchise reinvigorated the YA genre. It recreated an art form, gave people a voice. It gave voice to a teenage audience that was not being listened to up until then. We wouldn't have beautiful movies like Perks of Being a Wallflower and Edge of 17 without that YA resurgence that we had on the backs of Twilight. That's why Twilight's an important franchise. Now, Air Bud, we have 14 movies ranging from Space Buddies to Santa Buddies to Spooky Buddies. These movies make so much money.
Yes, they do.
And this is the problem with that. See, you're arguing that Step Up is shutting out some other hip hop movie that could be making money, and yours is other
Stomp the
YA
Yard, for
movies.
example, was a very enjoyable, and it was a different take than the usual. And that's the difference.
Stomp the Yard might have gotten shut out a little bit. Well, you know what? In 2009, there were two Buddies movies made, and they made a combined $79 million in DVD sales. $79 million.
Yes.
For reference, this year, Kubo and the Two Strings, one of the best kids movies that's possibly been ever made 44. We are shut because of the grandmas who are going to the store and seeing, oh, this is a cute puppy story. Because of that click from Disney, because of that cash grab from Disney, we are shutting out worthy kids movies, and that is damaging to cinema because there are so many important stories that need to be told.
Okay, well, you want to talk about damaging to cinema? Let's go back to Twilight.
She's very upset
Let's
about
go about the
Twilight.
fact that like there was no reason to split the book at the end, and that's why we have things like Divergent splitting the book for no reason. Let's go back to the
Which sometimes makes good movies. Hunger Games, Mockingjay Part 1, Part 2, you were able to get
Let's
two
go
very
back to the
different movies.
fact that like it killed both vampires.
Harry Potter also did it in Deathly Hallows.
It killed it literally put the coffin on vampires and werewolf. Like vampires apparently now sparkle. Werewolves apparently.
We got a brand new Underworld movie that's coming out right now.
This
Where's
is the
this coffin?
lowest point for vampire movies. This is the lowest point for
I think
werewolf
Vampires
movies.
Sucked is
and
the
it is
lowest
the
point for that.
lowest
Or Vampire
point.
Academy.
I would watch either one over this one because
You'd watch the Twilight parody
This
over
movie
Twilight.
makes no- I would watch any of
Here's the issue with
And by
what's
the way-
going on here. Twilight, I understand. Not everybody likes Twilight, and I sympathize and I admire your passion. But you don't like Twilight. In general, Twilight is not what I would consider the worst franchise with 5 movies. I can't. You can't even. It doesn't even come close. Same thing with the Air Buddies. You're absolutely right. Grandmas, kids, everyone loves the Air Buddies, including myself, who had the pleasure of watching all 14. Thank you again for that.
Oh, you're welcome.
These movies are enjoyable, and again, your franchise builds on a theme. We're going to space. We're playing a different sport. We're doing something different. Yours is a very cohesive story, start and finish. It's love. It's beautiful. It's fantastic.
Remember when Dan said I was full of horse shit during the
I'm
Kevin
getting a
Spacey
similar
fight?
feeling about
Listen,
Here's the thing.
That's true though. But that's the thing though. Yours elevates it every time. Yours is a cohesive story. Mine is just the same thing over and over again without the one good thing that made it work, which is Channing Tatum. We're dancing
That's
and we're
not-
gonna dance
here's-
again.
that's not
We're
what
gonna
makes
dance
your
again. We're gonna
franchise
step it
work.
up and we're gonna
I'm
dance.
one of the ones who show up in theaters for those movies. This is my
I saw all of them in
go-to
theaters.
guilty pleasure. I think what you're misjudging these movies because there's a specific audience in mind. They deliver what you expect. They are movies that are exuberant, they're joyful, they're fun. You saw some really technically amazing dance scenes, and you leave feeling a little better. Like, that's all you expect from them, and they consistently deliver that.
That last movie genuinely surprised me. No,
I've
that last
actually
movie, that
enjoyed-
ending, that twist ending, where we thought it was going to go
For
one
Twilight,
way.
you're
For
saying?
Twilight, we're
Yeah.
talking about. For the last portion, part 2, I genuinely, I'm sitting there, and again, sorry, Twilight, spoiler alert. Carlisle's head is sitting there in the guy's hand. I'm like, holy crap, they killed Carlisle, and I bought it, hook, line, and sinker. And then all of a sudden, again, is it that to me, that's something new, that's something different. I
Peter
was ready for that.
Facinelli's performance, Billy Burke's performance, Maggie Grace's performance, Anna Kendrick's performance. We have good performances. We have solid directing as the movies progress.
Shovelface bringing it every single time.
Exactly. The chemistry grows with every single movie down to the final movie where you get actually good movies. The Twilight movies, 3 of them are at 50% on Rotten Tomatoes and 2 are around 25 because we don't talk about those.
Okay.
But there are 3 that are genuinely the critics are split on, and the audiences love it. Now the thing about my franchise, I don't know how these movies got made. Air Bud by itself isn't even a good kids movie. The first Air Bud movie. No, hear me out.
Amazing.
Come on now.
The first Air Bud movie includes an
fun.
extended scene where a basketball coach throws a basketball at the face of his student until the student's on the floor bloody and crying in a kids movie. This movie, the plot hinges on alcoholism. This is not a kids franchise. This is a franchise that's maybe aimed at maybe 8, 9, 10, 11. And you know what? Movies exist for the first Air Bud. The last ones are for
Kids.
for babies. Maybe dumb babies.
I love all of them.
And the first movie is so just mind-blowingly dark in moments, and it's not made for the right audience. It doesn't know who it's aiming for. And when the Buddies franchise comes along, you have some of the worst voice acting you've ever seen. You have racial stereotype characters. You're teaching kids improper ways of doing things and improper social norms through puppies. You're using puppies to teach kids horrible lessons.
These are
How
not
do you do that?
they're not horrible
disagree.
lessons. They're entertaining movies, and the thing,
This is your final thought, but to make it clear, why is yours worst? Why is it worse? What are you defining as the worst compared to the other two? Go ahead.
my franchise does nothing new for the story, does nothing new over the progression of the movies. It doesn't even capitalize on the one thing that made the first one a serviceable movie. It's just repeating over and over again the same thing. Yours does expand upon it. The thing with you, the other thing that's mine is that all 5 of mine came out, these plotless, directionless movies, all of them came out in theaters. Yours, most of them are direct-to-video. It was only the first 3 or 4 that were actually released in theaters. Thank you. The rest of them were direct-to-video. There's a certain expectation in terms of direct-to-video, and again, for the purposes of direct-to-video, they are exactly the right kind of quality for what they are. My movies were released cinematically. These were films that people had to watch. And they were awful, and there was nothing redeeming about them. Again, 1 good movie out of 5, 3, maybe even 4 good movies out of 5, depending on the part 1 was god awful, but the rest of them were actually very entertaining, and I actually liked all of the original sports, and Space Buddies was a blast. I mean it genuinely.
Audrey?
I think when we can't be looking at which one made money because they all made money, unfortunately, and that's a sin for all of them. I think we have to be looking at what is the harm that is done by these series. And I think Step Up, it delivers what that audience wants, which is a feel-good time with a fun dance number. I think Air Buddy, especially as they've progressed, have become more and more age-appropriate, and they're fun movies that you buy at Walmart and you show it to, not any store.
Or Target.
Or Target
or
or any other
Walgreens.
store. And you show it to kids, and kids watch it. And it's always fun for a kid to watch a cute puppy doing absurd things. That's what they're looking for. They're short, you enjoy them, we move on. I think Twilight is, actually legitimately dangerous. I think it promotes horrible things for little girls. I don't think the fact that any little girl has ever seen this movie is really, really problematic. It creates horrible expectations as to what romance is. And as a movie standpoint, not only is it a bad movie with the main characters having no chemistry and bad acting, it also does a disservice to werewolf movies, to vampire movies, and also to YA novels as a whole by allowing them to believe that you can make a movie by making horrible movies like this. So I think that kind of precedent is more harmful than both of yours.
Jonathan, final thought?
All right. First of all, yes, Twilight has enabled the YA genre, and like I said, because of that, the YA genre has come back, and we've gotten some amazing movies, like I said earlier. Twilight on its own has some amazing chemistry between actors, has amazing actors, they're good. A lot of them are actually good movies. Now, when we go over to Step Up, you said it yourself. It does what it sets out to do. It doesn't shoot very high, and it hits it. The movies itself, they're set out to be good song and dance movies, and they're good song and dance movies. That's all you expect from them. Now, you even said mine are direct to video, and the expectation is lower. The expectation is lower and is lower than your movies. Doesn't even hit that expectation. You automatically said my movies are expected to be worse.
No, it meets the expectation of a direct-to-video movie.
Even if my expectations are met when it's lower on some of maybe the good ones, like you say Space Buddies is, which is basically farting dogs for the entire movie.
Hilarious.
And
They're so cute.
in the end, like I started to say earlier, your movie is not shutting out any other better hip-hop dance number movies. Your movie led the way for YA novels, and maybe you don't like the morality of the movie, but the movies itself are solid. My movie takes money away from good kids movies that are out there, and you know what? I want good cinema for kids. I want good
Disney's
cinema
doing
for children.
just fine.
This is Disney. Dan.
Yes, there were
Air
5.
Bud, right?
There
Is
were-
Disney.
Air Bud,
Yeah, it is Disney.
There were 5 Air Bud movies. 2 of them were released in theater. The soccer Baseball and volleyball ones went straight to video. There are 7.
The football went to theatrical?
Golden Receiver.
Yeah,
Then
receiver,
there's
that's
Air
what I-
Bud World Pup.
I love that one.
Then
actually.
7th Inning Fetch and Air Bud Strikes Back.
That's the only good one.
There are 7 Air Buddies spin-off films, and there are 2 Santa Paws spin-off films from the Air Buddies franchise.
Spin-offs from the spin-off.
Spin-offs from the spin-offs.
It's like Rogue One.
God, don't you wish you had thought up Air Bud? All those.
Seriously.
Right?
Ain't no rule says the dog can't play basketball. So much fun.
Yeah,
awesome.
I have my feelings here. This was tougher for me. Do you want me to go
difficult.
first? I have a feeling.
Okay, well, I should. I don't think Randall's gotten to go
Randall,
first.
wanna say-
Randall, what do you want to say? Where are you going?
Be honest with you, I haven't seen half of Twilight, so I
Good
don't
for
know.
you.
The second half I didn't see. I haven't seen any of the Air Buds movies.
You're missing out,
But
man.
you saw all the Step Up movies, right?
I've seen all the Step Up movies. I will fight that. Now 2 and 3, I can fight the merits of those 2 movies.
2 and 3. Wow. Okay.
But I'm kind of leaning, and unfortunately, I'm kind of leaning towards Dan's argument a little bit more. But
I appreciate it.
I don't know, it's hard.
Here's where I stand, Dan. You want me to give you, and then you can help chime in.
Yeah.
We'll see if we can get a consensus on this. I was actually torn. I thought Audrey brought in some interesting things here about why it's the worst and why it's dangerous. That said, and she also knocked down Step Up a little way of like those movies serve with purpose. But then Jonathan was able to jump on that too. And then your closing really got me when you were able to get Dan to admit, your expectations are lowered. Well, then if my expectations are met, you're admitting that they are the worst. Was an interesting sort of thing you did there that did impress me at the end. So that tactic was sort of helped notch him above in my book. But I'm curious,
Who,
Dan,
Dan?
for
I'm
Jonathan.
Oh,
I
so
thought
I thought- yeah,
Jonathan's
'cause it-
Jonathan's
see-
takedown of Dan there at the end, sort of getting him to admit that you're admitting my movies are worse because they're all to DVD.
Oh, this is
was
not
an
going to be
interest-
helpful at all. Because I thought that the direct-to-video angle was a critical hit and a fundamental flaw in the argument for Air Bud and the Air Buddies movies, which is that there is a lower bar to clear with direct-to-video versus theatrical. They both had theatrical movies, 5 or more theatrical movies. And in a close fight, I thought that was actually a very critical hit to Jonathan's argument because there is a lower bar for direct-to-video that's easier to meet, and you have less expectation.
I'm with you, and I wrote that down as the hit, but here's where I'm challenging. I've never heard it. He used that to his advantage by saying, yes, there's a lower expectation, but if those expectations are met, that is a worse movie. And so it's,
By saying they're automatically worse, they're
by
automatically
you
worse.
just saying, well, they're straight to video, so there's a
but
lower
it's-
bar
but-
to clear.
but he
It's like,
also was
that means
bringing-
they're terrible.
But he also was bringing his personal bias towards those movies. I think they were just like, they're for kids. They're for, even you said the
Yeah.
first one was made for 8, 9, 10, 11-year-olds.
Yeah,
The
but-
rest are made for babies. Well, yeah.
Yeah, but
And Jonathan even admitted, the last one made $75 million
So who are you
on
picking?
video.
I'm
I'm
confused.
just saying, for me,
Who are you
Jonathan,
picking?
both in argument out, he argued himself out of this round, is what I'm saying. For me, I thought Jonathan was hit and argued himself out of the round. So it's between Dan and Audrey for me.
Where did you go?
I went with, I actually went with Dan. I thought that he laid out a more compelling case about why his films were the worst. They had declining audience ratings. I thought that Audrey was very passionate about why she felt that her movies had a bad effect on society, but I thought Dan made a better argument for why his movies were worse. And I thought that they argued better against hers about why they may have bad messages, but they might not be terrible movies.
No, that's where I was stuck. So I was stuck because I think they did help point why Twilights aren't terrible movies. But I'm still, and I'm going to have this, we're long, and this is worth it because this is for the marbles
It was
here.
fun, yeah.
Jonathan did go off. I'm going back. He talks about how they're great soundtracks. They are what you are. He did sort of knock down those, point out that those films aren't as bad. So where I'm hung up is they're not that bad films. You sort of, and both Audrey and Jonathan were able to take Dan out on that. And where I got hung up was, yes, I wrote down critical hit for the straight to DVD, but I don't know. There was something clever about the fact that he was able to turn that to prove a straight to DVD franchise.
How many times must we step
You
up?
just asked us for our advice. If you want to ignore it, that's up to you. You wanted to know what we thought.
YouTube's gonna have
I'm
a
trying to
fun
have a
time.
conversation with you, Dan.
Seriously.
Don't need to get defensive.
Well, I'm just
I didn't
saying.
make a ruling.
This already happened.
So am I supposed to go with you and the couch, Dan?
No.
You seem a little. Dan seems heated already.
I appreciate the passion on my behalf.
I'm just trying to talk it out with you because I want to make sure we make this ruling together.
It's a subjective game.
Yeah, I think. Randon, you're still staying. You said Dan made the better argument.
I think in the grand scheme of things, I think his argument was laid out better.
Which is telling because you like the films.
Yes.
He did like 2 and 3.
That's weird, really. You like the films and you still thought Dan brought enough examples as to why the films weren't good.
Yeah, because I have a personal bias against Twilight.
Well, Twilight's out.
Yeah,
It's the correct answer, but okay.
And I don't know too much about anything after the original Air Bud, so I have no clue about any of those.
All right, I've made a ruling. I gotta say, the fact that a fan of those films was able to sit there and still hear that they were worse.
Stop it.
That's telling to me. I gotta embrace that because I could be wrong. I gotta give Dan the points.
Holy crap.
I got to use the fans here to help. And I was on the fence, and I had a reason. And Jonathan, you saw I was very close. So kudos, Jonathan. That was very clever. It was a critical blow, though, that he gave you with the straight TV. But I got to give you props. It was a very, very good fight. Wow, 3 amazing fighters here, I got to say. But yeah, and talking with the couch, I do see. I'm impressed that Randall, who's loved, can defend 3 of those movies. Still was ready to do it. So I can't ignore that. So kudos. That means, Dan, you're making it into the final here. Speed round, long episode.
Holy crap.
We're already out of the time. This might go for the record books. Yeah. All right. Great. We're going straight into speed round.
I feel like we've been here before.
You guys know how this works.
Jen.
Jonathan, you get to help chime in here now.
Got this.
You are not a loser here today. You are a champ here, and this made it this far. But now let's see who takes this belt home. Speed round. Here we go. Number 1.
Oh my god.
Let's hear that music.
No, it just makes it more nervous.
That's why we do it.
What is the best movie animal?
Simba.
Willie from Free Willy.
Simba versus Willie. Adry, I heard you first, therefore you go first. Time begins when you begin speaking.
Simba's the main character of probably one of Disney's most iconic and best films. He is a character who has to struggle with some really difficult things and going through the death of his father and having to learn about what does it mean to be an individual and what does it mean to grow up and what does it mean to come to his responsibilities. I think the arc he does and his progression as well as the quality of the overall story makes him infinitely better than Willie, which is a movie that, as campy as it is and has like a nostalgia...
Dan?
Willie has to overcome being separated from his family. With Willie, first of all, Willie is the main character of the movie. Willie is in the title of the movie, whereas Simba's name is not mentioned in the movie. Willie does more without a single word than Simba can do with words. Willie is also an actual animal. When Willie starts crying for his family with the, you know what I'm talking about, that actually strikes a chord more than anything that...
10 seconds.
Simba's name is in the title. He is the Lion King. And I think seeing him watch his father get trampled and that whole scene with the music, it's one of the most moving scenes in Disney history and in cinema history. It brings tears to everybody. I think...
10 seconds, Dan. Use them wisely.
The Mufasa death scene is the only memorable, or the most memorable scene. Willie jumping over that wall with it just, yeah, and Willie just going and returning back to the ocean to his family. That is the most
Can you give me the yeah again?
Yeah! You have to do it like
I had a clear winner in my mind. Jonathan?
Willie.
Yeah!
Willie. Dan?
Adry.
Yeah. Randall?
Audrey.
Yeah, it was Adry for me. I don't know what Jonathan was listening to.
She never got a hit in against Willie, so I thought that I thought she was arguing more the movie than the...
Either way,
mine's a real animal, though.
Yeah, the fact that she even caught the punch of it is in the title. He's the Lion King. There was enough there for me. Audrey gets that point.
Oh my god.
You're one ahead. Here we go. What is the best Star Wars episode title?
Force Awakens.
Empire Strikes Back.
Whoo! In honor of The Last Jedi. This was almost a fight we did today. So you guys did prepare a little bit. You could have, and I think you actually went against what you had said originally.
Yes.
So interesting. Okay, you're allowed.
To be fair, I forgot what I said yesterday.
Revenge of the Jedi.
I think you picked Sith.
Sith, yeah.
We almost went with that
Revenge
fight.
of the Sith,
But Dan, I heard you first, and you picked Force Awakens. Best Star Wars title. Time begins when you begin speaking.
The Force Awakens had a very big job to do. It had to repair all the damage of the prequels, and The Force Awakens was just nuanced enough and just mysterious enough that it let you wonder what's going to happen. It made you want to know more. It didn't give too much away while still enticing you and making you more interested. Empire Strikes Back, it really doesn't say much about the actual story. Empire Strikes Back really is more so... The movie itself is actually...
And Adry, go ahead.
A title has two purposes. It's supposed to pump you up and deliver vis-a-vis the movie. I think Force Awakens pumped me up, but it did not deliver vis-a-vis the movie. What Force Awakens was just R2. I think Empire Strikes Back was exciting. I think we were so excited to see the whole Empire go on attack, and I think the movie delivered by being just as good as the title. Is that even understandable?
Time is up now. There we go. She didn't need it all. There we go. Let's see if that'll hurt her. Dan, 10 seconds.
The question was best title. Empire Strikes Back may be the best movie, but Force Awakens was the best title. It gives you just enough without giving you too much information and spoiling the whole concept, and at the end of the movie, the Force has awakened. That's the reality.
10 seconds.
The Force never went to sleep. I think the title was irrelevant. I think Empire Strikes Back it directly relates to the movie, and I think it was exciting vis-a-vis the first movie to go into that, to knowing that the Empire was going to go on attack back.
Whoo! Going to the couch first this time, Dan and Randall.
Dan.
Jonathan?
Dan.
We're on agreement. It was Dan. Very close, though. Good try.
Yours was very good.
It's like trying to cram information.
I would go more, but we're very behind on time. But yes, we all agreed. So there. But you're still in this. Here we go. We're tied again.
All over again.
Oh, he stuck this in. This is it. What is the better movie that got? I'm gonna name them too, but if you can think of it first, you're allowed to say it first. Mm-hmm. What is the better movie that got 14 Oscar nominations? Titanic or La La Land?
Titanic.
Dan said Titanic. Adry, you have La La Land. Dan, that means you're going first. Time begins when you begin speaking.
The love story in Titanic is by far one of the best love stories that's ever been told in cinema. La La Land does a decent job of telling a love story, but ultimately doesn't do the same thing that James Cameron was able to do in Titanic visually or from the story perspective. In addition, I saw La La Land here in the Chinese theater, the best experience ever, and I still hold Titanic way above just in story and in entertainment value. It's more entertaining, keeps you there. La La Land is...
Time begins when you begin speaking, Adry.
Lala takes the most basic story of romance and elevates it. It is a movie that is an homage to movies in itself. It's a beautiful story, and the degree of cinematography is amazing. I think Titanic is a little bit bloated. I laughed at the end because she drops him in the water after saying, "I'm not going to let you go." I think it was impressive for the time, but I do not think it holds up to La La Land.
10 seconds, Dan.
La La Land is a love story to Hollywood. It's a musical, and it's not even the best musical that I've ever seen. Titanic is a story like none other. The visual effects of that ship just splitting is like nothing that you see in La La Land. And the love that...
10 seconds, Adry.
I would pick the floating dancing scene from La La Land over the effects of that scene, and I think Titanic has some serious issues, especially when you think of the fact that she had another husband and then died, but somehow in heaven she only sees the original lover, so what happens to her husband? It's not good.
Ooh, Jonathan, based on those arguments, you got it based on the arguments. Be fair here.
The facts presented by Adry were solid, but I feel like Dan's passion was significantly higher, so it's kind of a wash for me.
Facts versus passion. Okay, Dan and Randall.
I think if Adry had continued the line of thought that she started in her rebuttal, she might have had a stronger argument, but that was a little too late for me, so I'm going to lean toward Dan on this one.
Well, let's hear Randall.
And, man, that's a really tough choice. I will have to say Dan, I think.
And you're still playing both sides?
I would edge it to Dan, but barely.
Yeah, it was really close.
Very close.
I think Dan, though, Dan Murrell said it. I think you were. Yeah. Your opening was really strong, Adry, but then I think Dan's closing was not very good.
No, my closing was not very good.
Dan's closing wasn't good. I mean, why did you pick? I'm going Adry here, but I'm just trying to verify if I missed something because Dan's closing was terrible.
Thank you.
Not terrible, but it just wasn't comparably.
Terrible.
He just got hung up on the effects. I feel like at the end there.
There's an extra layer.
Whereas Adry could give me more about why the movie was better.
Yeah, but she said I'd take the dancing over any of those effects. Like again, based on that argument, doesn't really ring true.
I'm washing the two final rounds and giving it to the openers, and I thought Adry did a better opener. Did I miss something in Dan's?
I thought Dan did a better opener about Titanic is a classic love story. La La Land is a flawed one. I thought that he sold me on the story better.
Well, and coming from someone who is so obsessed with La La Land.
Coming from someone who may or may not agree with that sentiment.
She did say that. All right, Dan's up by 1.
Thank you. I really enjoyed La La Land.
That's why we're talking these out.
I really did. It was very enjoyable.
I want to make sure you guys feel this was fair. We're involving all parties. Here we go. Whoo! I'm making sure this question's good. Sorry, I didn't get.
Taking the glasses off.
Okay.
I'm like sweating here. It's horrible.
This is. I'm worried that number 4 here is. I want to argue. All right, let's switch this. Right? Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Nope. All right. This is a very. I want to go nice and broad for this to give this fair. Okay. Here we go. What movie improves the most on repeat viewings?
Sixth Sense.
Batman vs. Superman.
Visible hug from Adry.
I feel strongly about it.
Adry, you're first. Here we go. Time begins when we begin speaking.
I think in what is probably Shyamalan's masterpiece, this movie, the first viewing, it's entertaining and you get that surprise ending, so you have to rewatch it. And when you rewatch it, you get a completely different experience. It's even worth watching 2 or 3 times so you can get all the nuances of how those scenes play out vis-a-vis the fact that he is not physically there. I think, on the contrary, Batman vs. Superman makes it groan-worthy. There's only so many times I can watch Lex Luthor and not want to, like...
Dan.
Sixth Sense is all that ending. When you go back and you watch it and you know that it's not going to be happening, or you know that it's going to be happening that way, that's the whole concept of spoilers. And one of the first spoilers that ever occurred, that movie gets spoiled for you and it's not the same impact. And so watching it again is basically a spoiler. With Batman vs. Superman, the more you watch it, the more you see all the little nuances and the plans, especially when you talk about the extended edition. You get to watch that back and you get to see all the different...
10 seconds?
The least thing I wanted was more time with these characters. I cannot stand Lex Luthor. I think most people found him extremely annoying. I think the characters were, Superman was extremely flat. I think the mother thing is unforgivable. There's another layer in rewatching A Sixth Sense, which is missing.
Dan, respecting the bell. I like that.
Very good bell courtesy, yes.
Bell courtesy is the thing.
Batman vs. Superman was negatively impacted by a lot of hype. So once you get past the initial hype and you get to go back and watch it with fresh eyes, you see it and appreciate Batman's performance, Ben Affleck's performance, Gal Gadot's performance, and you start to see all those different...
Whew. I'll show my cards first, and then we'll go back to you. I thought Adry got that one for me just because you tried to make it sound like just because it's a spoiler, you can't watch it again, but she clarified it again of course that adds a new layer which to watches, which you could argue, I don't know how you get that in Batman Superman. Jonathan, wait.
Adry.
Guys?
Definitely.
Okay, so we're on agreement on that one. Adry, you're back in this.
I agree with you with the hype, though.
So we're tied, right?
It's a familiar position. We are tied.
Tied at the very end. Holy
I think it's the same score as last time, too. Like 1-4.
No, it's 1-1.
All right, I got to make sure I give you the best question here. Let's see.
I'm so glad you're back, by the way.
It's
It's
good to be
awesome.
back. Thanks for having me.
Oh, man. Dan.
Yes.
Verify this for me.
Okay.
This is too
This is a
The
first.
movie fights first.
This is a
Yeah.
movie
I think we're definitely going to go overtime on this one.
I think we already
There's a little clock that happens just for behind the scenes. There's a little clock that ticks, and it turned off. We've been going for so long. Is it for all the marbles? Is this it?
This is it.
This is it. It's 4-4, same as last time.
Breathe.
Because all we need at this stage is a pause.
Just have fun with it. Yeah.
And I feel like there's an easy answer here, isn't there?
Hi, Mom and Dad and Vicky,
Can we get a water refill?
and Jackie and David.
Hey guys watching.
Can we get some water refill?
Yes, like Price is Right. Shout outs to the family. Like, all right.
Confirmed?
We confirmed.
Oh yeah, shout out to the family.
The
Yay.
judges have
And Dorel from last round, who was
Jarrell,
awesome.
we love you,
confirmed
Jack.
by both
You're the
Dan
man.
and I.
Jack, yeah, Maggie.
Here we go for all the marbles. Get ready. Worst Michael Bay movie.
Transformers 4? That's the most recent one?
Being very cautious. I'm sorry.
All right, 10 seconds.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles counts producer-wise, or you want director?
Director.
Director.
Okay. Let's go with Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen.
That would be the second transfer.
2
This is the
versus
same
4.
argument.
This really will rely
I
on
tried
your
to give you
argument
Ninja
skills.
Turtles, man.
And since Adry gets to go first, that might be an advantage. We'll see here.
Might be.
Or it might not. But Transformers 4 versus Transformers 2. Audrey, time begins when you begin speaking.
Assuming you bothered to show up for Transformers 4, the movie is unwatchable. The action is indistinguishable. It's just a cluster of metal. The characters are completely forgettable. The entire movie is basically a rehash of what we've done to now. I think the second one, at least I had hope, because the first one had some interesting ideas, so going into it, it was okay. I think by the time you get to a fourth film, you're so tired.
Dan.
Transformers 2 took everything that was wrong with the first one and tripled down and made it even worse. You took a great actor like Totoro and made him just, god awful when he's standing below the enemy's scrotum or whatever. That was the worst thing in the world. With your movie, we get the addition of Mark Wahlberg. He's an inventor. That's fantastic. It's a change of pace. It's something new that we get to enjoy. It's not the same old thing. It's not...
10 seconds. Make them count, Audrey.
I'm like flipping through papers. Give me a second. I think the brutal desecration of Mark Wahlberg might actually be the biggest flaw with my movie. I think having to see him pretend to be an inventor and it's like, oh, I'm an inventor, this will help. I mean, it's so painful to watch these actions, these performances. I ran out of time.
10 seconds, Dan.
Transformers 4 added something different. It took us in a different direction. It gave us a different concept, and it gave us different stars. And at the end of the day, Mark Wahlberg was compelling and entertaining on screen. And again, he did a great job in kind of taking it a different direction away.
I'm going to do something. I'm going to give them 10 more seconds each.
10 seconds each.
This is it. I don't want any last. I should have said it. I'm giving you it. Here we go. 10 seconds, Audrey. Gotta go.
Every other movie was basically rehashing and adding new characters to the same stupid plot. They're all poorly acted, and this movie is just the fourth iteration of something, by which time we're all tired. There's nothing compelling. Mark Wahlberg was a horrible addition.
Last 10 seconds, Dan.
Transformers 2 was the opportunity to right the ship. Transformers 1 was entertaining and passable, and they had a chance to fix things, and instead they went the complete opposite direction, which is why my movie is ultimately the worst Michael Bay movie. They could have...
Oh, man. Got a lot there. Jonathan, based on those arguments, where do you stand?
Everything was pretty tit for tat the whole way through. It was a very well fought speed round. That final, I wanted something new from Dan. That was what I was really looking for. And when he brought in that it's the worst because that was the turning point. As a creative, I might.
Interesting. Okay,
Yeah.
you can hold on. Dan and Randall, where do you say? Anything you want to add from a what swayed you perspective?
I will tell you what swayed me, which is that I'm not entirely sure, even from the second that she selected it, that Audrey was sure which Transformers movie she was talking about. And Dan, to me, showed a mastery of knowledge,
Yeah.
both of the content of Transformers 2
It's the
and the
crazy
content of
information.
Transformers 4. So, to me, his arguments came off as more grounded in reality as opposed to general failings with the Transformers films. So, I'm siding with Dan, personally. Me personally,
Yeah, so where I stand, I thought she actually did do a good job though with her hope argument, whether
Yeah.
she did or not,
Yeah.
the hope and the tired, but then she fell back on repeating it, whereas if she had just talked about China or any of the terrible things.
If someone
that
had picked
happened.
Pearl Harbor.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my god.
Or even just if she had gone off on the the idea of having sex with a minor and trying to justify
I thought for
it.
sure. I was really worried about that.
I think
I
sadly, because Dan came armed with more
Yep.
facts ready to go,
I agree with that. So
I gotta declare Dan second chance turned into the lead chance.
That is
Dan
awesome.
Hernandez, you are our fan fight champion.
I love you guys. Thank you so much. This is the coolest thing that's ever happened to me.
I agree with that. By the way, 100%. I would have given it to him. So
Bravo, sir. Fair fight all around. How about all three of these contenders? Bravo. There's so much to talk about. We will be live here and after the fight to talk about it. Sorry it's such a long episode, but join us on Plus. You can see all these sorts of fun things. Right, Dan?
Yes, so many things. You can go back. You can watch the semifinals to see how everybody got here. You can watch Randall. He calls in sometimes. You can see
Yeah, you
Randall's
can call
face.
in and talk to our shows. You
Talk
can
to
see
our
Dan's
shows.
Labyrinth every
Dan's
Monday to
Labyrinth.
break down shows.
Every Monday.
You guys are all Plus members. You love it, right?
Oh,
yes.
Love it. Worth every penny.
And there'll be some exclusive fights coming there. We're not taking fights away, but we're going to be adding more fights, which is trying experiments there to see if they work. So stay tuned, and thank you. Randall Sands, love you. Thanks for keeping up on Twitter. Always a nice gentleman on there. Thank you for that. Anything you'd like to say?
Just glad to be here. Thanks for having me. Hello to everyone back on the East Coast and everyone else talked to through the Screen Junkies communities. So
Awesome. I know they love you. Dan Merle, anything you'd like to plug?
At Merle Dan on Twitter, and congratulations again to Adry, Jonathan.
I gotta
Dan,
congratulate
great
Jonathan
competitors.
Youngblood. Bravo, sir. Youngblood at 95. I know you have a lot of fans out there. I know they will not be disappointed in you, man, and I hope you will come back and challenge again.
I will be submitting next year. Join Facebook groups Movie Talk by Movie Fans and geeksgamers.com and follow me at Youngblood_95. Congratulations to Dan.
Bravo, Adry Sotolonogo. Thank you so much. I'm
Can
so
I just
impressed.
plug in Jorel, who's awesome, and he has some really cool stuff online, so people
Mhm.
go check him out. And
His
also, it's my
freestyles are
husband's
amazing.
birthday this weekend, so happy birthday.
Perfect. And Dan Hernandez, our new fan fight champion.
Thank you.
Thought you were out. They brought you back in.
Keep bringing me back in.
It's worth it.
Thank you to everybody who helped me practice, who asked me questions during Christmas dinner and everything else in between. I appreciate my family, my friends, my coworkers. Thank you so much. Thank you to my fellow competitors. You guys have been the best part of this whole thing. It's been a lot of fun, and it's because we all love the same thing, and we had fun doing it. Jarrell, thank you. Oh my God, Shipley, I love you. You're the man. Thank you to all the fans. I had 3 followers on Twitter before this, and now I've got like 60 something, and everybody's been so nice. I appreciate you genuinely. Thank you so much for
thank
this
you.
opportunity.
We'll talk to some of them on after the fight next. You'll have to come back and defend that belt at some point, though. We're going to definitely do this
No
again.
problem.
You can find me at Andy Signor on Twitter, Instagram, and thank you so much. We love you, Screen Junkies family. This is amazing. I'm so glad we could bring this to you, and thank you for delivering, fans, all of you fans out there. So many amazing submissions. We'll be back here live and after the fight, and otherwise we'll see you next week. Bye-bye!
Thanks to NatureBox for sponsoring this episode. For more information, click the link in the description. And right now, you'll save even more because NatureBox is offering Screen Junkies fans 50% off your first order when you go to naturebox.com/ScreenJunkies. Again, that's naturebox.com/ScreenJunkies for 50% off your first order.